Chapter 25:18. Enter the crater and rob the magic mine. Don't worry. You are my subordinate. How can I point you to a dead end? Moreover, ever since I, Lin Ling, went to the Martial God Battalion, you have followed me. When have you ever suffered losses? Lin Ling said confidently. If he was not afraid that there would be spies here and expose his plan, he would not mind telling these people that a terrible destruction alliance would come one day later. Hearing this, Tang Yue nodded. Her lord had an ordinary background, but he had created miracles time and time again. He was a reliable man. Of course she believed him, but the others did not. Tang Yangyun kept shaking his head with a bitter smile. Of course, since he had agreed, he immediately looked at Lin Ling and asked, "When shall we take action?" "Act now." Lin Ling looked into the distance. One day was short. If they wasted more than 15 minutes, they would waste a lot of divine gems. Remember, this must not be leaked. At least before other experts find out, we must have something in our hands. Lin Ling said again. They won't find out. After all, the magic mine has been blocked by various big powers. Ordinary people do not dare to steal divine gems, even experts from other commanderies. If it were not for you, we would not dare to. Tang Yangyun said. Well, gather everyone and get ready to go. Lin Ling waved his hand and treated himself as the Emperor of Square Commandery. This guy. The experts of Square Commandery immediately gnashed their teeth. Even the genius of the second generation, Tang Yue, was cursing in his heart. Lin Ling was younger than him, but he had to listen to Lin Ling? But although he was dissatisfied, there was nothing he could do. Then, under Tang Yangyun's lead, everyone headed for the magic mine. On the way, Tang Yangyun still felt unreliable. He kept asking Lin Ling, "What if we are discovered? How can we deal with it?" "Someone will help us." Lin Ling replied with a smile, which made Tang Yangyun feel even more unreliable. Anyway, even if Lin Ling helped, he didn't think it would have any effect. Gradually, the vast divine mine came into view. It looked like a sinkhole with colorful clouds at the top. It was so beautiful that it looked like a fairyland. As they got closer, a wave of dense spiritual energy rushed towards them. Lin Ling and Dao Dai could not help but smile. Dao Dai and the others in particular were extremely excited. They had never imagined that they would be able to lay their hands on the godly mine that had been sealed off by experts. Of course, they had no idea about Lin Ling's plan. After all, even if the Creator Alliance came, would they really help them? Tang Yangyun, what do you mean by this? Just as the army approached the sinkhole, a cold shout suddenly came from the front. Clearly, someone had discovered Tang Yangyun and the others. I came to take a look at the divine mine, that's all. Tang Yangyun said with a calm expression. But why did you bring so many people here? Not far from the sinkhole, the voice was still heard. Then a large number of figures appeared. They were the experts from Tating Commandery. Could it be that you are afraid that I will snatch the divine crystals? Seeing this, Tang Yangyun immediately laughed. The warriors from Tating Commandery were stunned for a moment before they laughed as well. This was obviously impossible. After all, if the warriors from Square Commandery dared to snatch the divine crystals, they would definitely not be able to leave Nine Dragons' realm. Moreover, the various experts would have to answer to Square Commandery. Because Tang Yangyun and the others had broken the rules, they would be killed without mercy. Even if we let you snatch it, you won't dare to snatch it. Go in. One of the old men said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Tang Yangyun smiled meaningfully. He muttered to himself, "Sorry, snatch it for me, I really dare to snatch it." Then the army entered the sinkhole majestically. Although there were many people, the army was still very small compared to the endless sinkhole. As for the experts guarding outside the sinkhole, they did not pay much attention to Tang Yangyun and the others. These experts came from various forces. In addition to the three commanderies, there were also the Diyuan Mansion, Tongzhou, and the Ghost Realm. There were even many second generations of the three academies. They were here to help, and the reward was a certain amount of divine crystals. These divine crystals. Yes. After entering the sinkhole, Lin Ling found that it was a huge valley. Around the valley, the ground was scattered with divine crystals. It was a shocking sight. The rich spiritual qi made Dao Dai and the others feel refreshed. Lin Ling, what should we do next? Tang Yangyun looked at Lin Ling and asked. In fact, he was still hesitating. Let's plunder. Time is running out. Lin Ling said with a smile. After he finished speaking, he took the lead. With a wave of his right hand, a large number of divine crystals floated to him and he kept them in his ring. The crowd immediately looked at Tang Yangyun. They were still hesitating. After all, if they took action they would be doomed eternally. Tang Yangyun smiled bitterly. Lin Ling dared to take responsibility for his actions. He did not hesitate to steal. He had no scruples at all. Then he looked at Tang Yue and finally nodded. Let's steal. Let's do it. With his order, the others took action one after another. Dao Dai and the others were the most excited. They kept plundering along the way. When they saw that their rings were full of divine crystals, they almost fainted from happiness. Although they would die if their plan failed, at least for now they were happy. The others also had the same thought. Perhaps this was the so-called even if they died they would die with a full stomach. At this moment, everyone let go of their scruples. Tang Yongyun was the same. He secretly admired, if it weren't for that guy, I wouldn't have dared to be so unscrupulous. However, this feeling of being unscrupulous is so satisfying. Uncle Tang, I have the same feeling too. I'm a little excited. So this is what it feels like to steal. Tang Yue immediately replied. The two of them looked at each other. It seemed like they were in pain but happy at the same time. As for Lin Ling, he did not have so many scruples. This time he stole the divine mind to strengthen his grandfather and the others. Therefore he did not show any mercy. Haha, little guy, you really want to see the world in chaos. At this moment, a sweet voice sounded in Lin Ling's mind. It was Queen Xianxia. You're awake? Hearing that, Lin Ling stopped what he was doing. He was overjoyed. Queen Xianxia had woken up. She must have broken through to the next level. Thanks to your care, I've reached the level 5 True God Realm. I've entered the middle stage of the True God Realm. As expected, Queen Xianxia had successfully broken through to the next level. Moreover, an exquisite body flew out from Lin Ling's body. It was the True God Martial Soul. However, this martial soul was naked. Although it was a little blurry, one could still see her alluring body. Hey, can't you put on some clothes? Seeing that, Lin Ling said helplessly. Have you ever seen a true God martial soul wearing clothes? A true God martial soul is formed by a ray of light. Why are there so many rules? The ray of light floating in front of Lin Ling rolled its eyes. The true God martial soul was like a soul. However, it contained extremely powerful energy. Whatever. Now help me steal. Chapter 25:19. Welcome the storm. Very quickly the two of them joined in the looting. Lin Ling had hundreds of rings that were used to store treasures. They were obtained from the people he had killed over the years. At this moment they were all filled to the brim. On the other hand, when they looked at the divine ores again, their harvest was nothing more than a drop of water in the ocean. I can't take all of them. Are there any more rings? Lend me one. The eyes of Dao Dai and the others were filled with greed. They couldn't wait to take away all the divine ores. This was a huge mine that could even tempt the four commanderies. Naturally, the amount of divine gems in it was beyond imagination. Don't be too greedy. Remember, divine crystals are just cultivation resources, and they don't represent everything. You have to learn to be willing to give up in life. Only by giving up can you gain something. Seeing that Dao Dai and the others were acting a little different from usual, Lin Ling frowned and immediately said. In front of endless treasures, the usually calm martial artists had all lost their cool. The seeds of greed were constantly growing, so Lin Ling had no choice but to remind them. The moment Lin Ling spoke, Dao Dai and the others felt as if they had been struck by lightning. They were stunned for a moment before they gradually regained their senses. Many of the surrounding warriors also began to react. Even though they'd gained quite a bit earlier, their gains were too ordinary when compared to the entire mine. So, they wished for nothing more than to take the entire mine with them. This thought clouded their calmness. However, Lin Ling's words woke them up. Even Tang Yue and Tang Yangyun's hearts trembled as they looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. At this moment, they noticed that Lin Ling wasn't a rising star. Instead, he was like a martial god grandmaster that had seen through everything. After all, being able to remain calm before a treasure wasn't something an ordinary person could do. This guy is actually calmer than me. It seems that his rise wasn't due to luck. Tang Yangyun's opinion of Lin Ling had somewhat changed. Tang Yue nodded. My lord has always been mysterious. Everyone suppressed their greed and plundered the divine crystals once more. Time silently passed. As for Lin Ling, he raised his head to look at the sky. His eyes flickered continuously. The day was getting closer and closer. He gently stroked the jade pendant in his hand and felt the temperature of the jade pendant. His expression became even more serious. Stealing the divine mind this time was actually a gamble. Hopefully, everything will go according to Lin Ling's plan. What are you doing? After an unknown period of time, a puzzled voice suddenly came from the misty place in front of them. More than a dozen figures came from afar from the crater. Judging by their attire, These people seem to be experts from my commandery. This time, everyone was shocked, including Tang Yongyun, because they had been discovered. You are stealing divine crystals? The old man in the lead strode over and looked at Tang Yongyun and the others in surprise. One had to know that the sinkhole had already been sealed off by the various major forces. Unless one was an idiot, otherwise who would dare to come here to steal? Although Tang Yongyun's strength was not bad, the major forces also had such strong experts. Therefore, Tang Yongyun's actions were tantamount to courting death. Don't misunderstand, we're not stealing divine crystals. Even though Tang Yongyun had been through countless storms, he was still a little nervous at this moment. Of course, compared to the others, he was much calmer. Then how do you explain the divine crystals in your hands? Prince Tang Yongyun, you'd better explain clearly. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave here. The old man frowned and his tone was dignified. Although he was not as powerful as Tang Yongyun, he represented the various forces. Therefore he was not afraid of Tang Yongyun. This time Tang Yongyun found it difficult to explain. The others also started to feel uneasy. Haha, you want to explain? However, at this moment a laugh was heard. Behind Tang Yongyun, a tall young man walked out with a smile and walked towards the old man. Who are you? You don't seem to be from Square Commandery? The old man raised his chin and looked coldly at the young man. My name is Lin Ling. Do you need an explanation? Not bad, you're not dim-sighted. We are indeed stealing divine crystals. The young man was still smiling, but his smile suddenly became cold. As the old man's expression changed drastically, he quickly drew out the sword in his hand and slashed. The sword radiance was like water. The old man wanted to say something, but apparently he could not say anything. Plop. He fell down and was killed by the sword. Seeing this, the people behind him were all shocked. In fact, they were not sure that Tang Yongyun dared to steal divine crystals. It was just a guess. But now they were sure. You stole divine crystals? Someone cried out in surprise. Not only did you steal divine crystals, but you also killed people. Lin Ling's lips curled into a cold smile. He activated the sword of Azura and cut the man into pieces. These were all warriors from Square Commandery, so Lin Ling did not need to give them any face. What are you waiting for? Kill them. Then Lin Ling shouted to the people behind him. At this moment Tang Yongyun was in a daze. When he was discovered, he was still trying to find an excuse. Who knew that Lin Ling would be so violent and kill them directly? This explanation was better than anything else. However, once the arrow was shot, there was no turning back. This also meant that they were going to face the encirclement of various forces. Attack. Tang Yongyun was indeed an ambitious person. He knew that it was useless to think too much, so he immediately waved his hand and ordered. A large number of experts shot out and wiped out the remaining people. Then they all looked at Lin Ling, and their expressions became even more uneasy. However, Lin Ling looked calm and shook his head. We can leave now. Unfortunately, we only managed to take a few divine crystals with us. A few? Everyone's mouths were wide open. In fact, they had gained a lot. It was the first time in their lives that they had seen so many divine crystals. However, Lin Ling only said a few. Lin Ling was not worried about the situation at hand. Instead, he was helpless because he had gained too little. Isn't this guy a little too calm? Let's leave this place. As they widened their eyes, Lin Ling smiled and looked into the distance. At this moment he finally realized that the jade pendant in his hand was getting hotter and hotter. Go now. Tang Yongyun knew that there was no time to lose, so he immediately gave the order. The army left toward the side of the sinkhole. Next, the real problem came. It was easy to enter but difficult to leave. As expected, when Tang Yongyun and the others approached the sinkhole, a large number of eyes stared at them from the dark. Among them, quite a few gazes were true God Realm powerhouses. Just based on Tang Yongyun alone, he could not stop them. Prince Tang, are you ready to leave? According to the rules, you must be searched. At the edge of the sinkhole, a large number of experts appeared and looked at Tang Yongyun and the others indifferently. At this moment, Tang Yongyun did not know what to do. He could only look at Lin Ling. Lin Ling smiled and strode forward, causing the experts in the distance to frown. Who was this young man? What did he mean by walking out? Brothers, let's start the massacre. However, Lin Ling's next sentence shook the entire sinkhole. At this moment, the Ashura sword formation flew out majestically and wiped out all of those experts. Lin Ling knew that he could not hide from these guards. In that case, he might as well kill them directly. The storm would come sooner or later. Chapter 25-20. Besieging. This guy is really direct and efficient. Wow. Tang Yongyun was stunned by Lin Ling's actions. He didn't expect Lin Ling to choose such a tough attitude in front of so many experts. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and shake his head. It seemed that he was getting old and couldn't be as calm as the younger generation. Then he waved his hand and ordered the army to prepare for battle. But at this moment, his fighting spirit was boiling. It was obvious that although he didn't believe in Lin Ling, once he made a choice, he would definitely do it. Moreover, the older one was, the more afraid of death he was. But at this moment, he felt that he had returned to his youth and had the drive of a young man. Young people should have this kind of drive. Brothers, prepare for battle. Go. Tang Yangyun walked out, and the nervous army behind him also showed a look of facing death with equanimity. Fight. 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 The warriors of Square Commandery all roared to the sky. Their momentum attracted all the experts around the giant sinkhole and sealed off the entire giant sinkhole. Like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples, the sky was densely packed with warriors in a short period of time, and they all looked coldly at the ground. Among them, there were many ancient experts in the true God realm, who were the pillars of the various forces. They didn't expect that Tang Yangyun would dare to steal the divine crystals. He was simply courting death. Many people even had sarcastic smiles on their faces because Tang Yangyun's death meant that the divine crystals of Square Commandery would be divided among them. They had the advantage. Tang Yangyun, what do you mean by this? Elder. Among the countless experts, an old man shouted angrily as if the heavens were angry. Not far from him, many experts put their hands behind their backs and looked down at Tang Yangyun and the others as if they were looking at a group of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The reason why they didn't attack now was that they wanted to know why Tang Yangyun would make such a stupid choice. Countless eyes stared at Tang Yangyun, which made him tense up. He subconsciously looked at Lin Ling and was surprised to find that Lin Ling's face was very calm, as if he didn't know what was coming. At this moment, Lin Ling's lips curled into a cold smile. Do all the mines in the Nine Dragons realm belong to you? You big powers sealed off the divine mines and didn't allow other wandering cultivators to get close. You were so overbearing and heartless. What was the meaning of this? Who are you? In the skies, all the powerhouses were looking at Lin Ling. They never thought that while Tang Yangyun hadn't spoken, a junior would actually take the initiative to speak up. And this junior's strength was only at the 6th level of the World King realm. How dare you? What right do you have to speak? Kneel down. The experts all shouted angrily, but the old man was indeed a formidable character. He waved his hand and the experts all quieted down. Then the old man said indifferently, I am the Tai Si Xiang, true god of the Grand Court Commandery. Who are you? He couldn't help but be a little surprised. In the current situation, even Tang Yangyun was worried about his life and death, yet this junior was so calm. This aroused his interest. Four symbols, true gods? Lin Ling smiled inwardly. He had heard this name before. Tai Tianyi, who had died at his hands in the past, seemed to be this old man's son. He shook his head and his calm voice floated out, I am Lin Ling. His words were as if he were speaking to a friend, calm and relaxed. But as these words spread out, the entire sky pit was shaking. Many people present had heard of Lin Ling's name before, especially those from the Tai Si Commandery, and the Great Yuan Mansion. They hated this name to the bone. They never imagined that such an enemy wouldn't hide from them, but instead appear in front of them. He was even trying to steal the divine mines? This was insane. At this moment, countless powerhouses stared at Lin Ling. Some even rubbed their eyes, fearing that they were seeing things. The old man's pupils shrank. You're Lin Ling? Genuine? A smile appeared on Lin Ling's face as he replied nonchalantly. You killed my son and are the enemy of the Tai Si Commandery. Now, you even brought Tang Yangyun and the others to steal the divine mines? You're courting death. The old man gradually smiled. It was a ferocious and crazy smile. In fact, he was the one who wanted to kill Lin Ling the most in the Tai Si Commandery because Lin Ling had killed his son. He just didn't have the chance, but now he had. Lin Ling, he is Lin Ling. Of course, he wasn't the only one who wanted to kill Lin Ling. The powerhouses from the Tai Si Commandery and the Great Yuan Mansion all wanted to kill him. After being surprised, they laughed. They looked up to the sky and laughed. The heavens were on their side. Aha, this is great, this is great. I have searched high and low for you only to find you by chance. Lin Ling, I want to see how you will die today. Tang Yangyun, you have a great reputation, but unfortunately you trusted this Lin Ling and came to die with him. He has killed you. As the experts laughed, they let out excited cries. Of course they were happy. Today not only could they kill Lin Ling, but they could also kill Tang Yangyun. Furthermore, the Square Commandery wouldn't dare to seek revenge. How could they not be excited? Tang Yue and the rest turned pale as they listened to the laughter that filled the sky. Previously they wanted to fight to the death, but now they realized that it was unrealistic. The only outcome for them was death. Moreover, it would be total annihilation. Even Tang Yangyun pursed his lips tightly and looked at Tang Yue with a trace of resentment. If Tang Yue hadn't trusted Lin Ling, they wouldn't have died today. Noticing Tang Yangyun's gaze, the others more or less blamed Lin Ling. It's hard to say until the last moment. Tang Yue replied, biting her lips. In fact, she was comforting them. Of course, this kind of comforting was not persuasive. He said that if the matter was exposed, there would be someone to protect us. Now it seems that we have all been fooled. He alone can't protect us. Someone said with a sigh. His heart was dead. Seeing their expressions, the powerhouses in the sky were not surprised. After all, if they were in the same situation, they wouldn't be any better. Tang Yangyun, for the sake of the four commanderies, I forgive your ignorance. If you leave immediately, I won't pursue this matter. Of course, you won't get a share of the magic mine this time. What do you think? The elder in the sky was not in a hurry and said slowly. He knew that Tang Yangyun would never be so bold. Everything was because of Lin Ling's bewitchment. Therefore he wanted to see Lin Ling abandoned by Tang Yangyun and the others. At that time, Lin Ling would feel isolated and helpless. To him, Lin Ling was doomed. However, to kill Lin Ling so easily was obviously too easy for Lin Ling. He wanted to play him to death slowly. We can leave alive? Hearing this, Tang Yangyun and the others' eyes lit up. No one is allowed to leave. However, Tang Yangyun shouted coldly. Everyone's gaze froze. If there was a way out, would they choose to die? Chapter 25-21. Fight. It had to be said that Tang Yangyun was a man with his own principles. Hearing this, Tang Gu and the others sighed. Right now they could only be buried with Lin Ling. Good Lord Tang Yangyun, you are indeed an indomitable expert. I will leave you with a complete corpse to show my respect to you. The elder in the sky didn't stop Tang Yangyun and the others from sending themselves to their deaths. He looked at Lin Ling with a crazed look on his face. Lin Ling, you've fallen into my hands. Do you have anything to say? The winner is king and the loser is a bandit. I have nothing to say. Lin Ling said with a faint smile. He glanced at Tang Yangyun and felt even more respect for this person. However, his expression was too calm, which made the old man very unhappy. Shouldn't Lin Ling be panicking, regretting, or even in pain right now? He didn't like killing people who didn't fear death because it didn't give him any pleasure. I'll give you a chance. Let's fight. You can use any method you want. If you win, all of you can leave. Moreover, we won't pursue the matter of the stolen divine crystals. The old man said in a dignified manner. For symbols, true gods? Hearing this, the experts at the side cried out in surprise. Killing Lin Ling was something that could be done in the blink of an eye. Why would they give Lin Ling a chance? Yes, I agree. But soon, someone from only what commandery said. They understood the intentions of the great four symbols, true gods. They didn't want Lin Ling to die too easily, and they also wanted to slowly torture and kill Lin Ling, otherwise, how could they feel any pleasure? Lin Ling seized this opportunity. Who knows, you might be able to survive. After that, those powerhouses spoke one after another, as if they had bestowed upon Lin Ling a great opportunity. You mean what you say? However, Lin Ling's eyes lit up and he smiled faintly. I, the great four symbols true god, am a man of my word. Lin Ling, I know that you are a monstrous genius. However, I am very skeptical about the extent of your monstrous talent. Therefore you had better perform well. The old man waved his hand and four experts walked out. For people? And they are all at the half-step true god realm. Tang Yangyun and the others were still holding on to hope, but at this moment they were also frowning. How was this an opportunity? From the beginning to the end, he had never intended to let Lin Ling go. Lin Ling, the #1 rookie of the second generation, come and fight me. Above the sky, four powerhouses appeared and floated there, waving at Lin Ling. Lin Ling, I have no enmity with you. It's just that you've angered everyone, so you only have two choices now. One fight. One of the armored men said faintly. He had only one eye and the other was blind. However, the remaining eye was like an eagle's. When one looked into his eyes, one's soul would be moved. What about the second choice? Lin Ling raised his head, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. Four half-step true god realm powerhouses, and they looked like old monsters who had cultivated for 10,000 years. Their strength was not to be underestimated, but Lin Ling wanted to test his limits. The second choice is to cripple your own cultivation, then kneel down and kowtow. I will guarantee that you will leave. The one-eyed man said indifferently. He had no enmity with Lin Ling, but Lin Ling dared to steal his divine mind, so he naturally would not let Lin Ling go. Moreover, although Lin Ling was a monstrous genius, his strength was not as good as his, so everything was meaningless. He could abuse him however he wanted. Cripple his cultivation? Hearing the overbearing voice, Tang Yue and the rest narrowed their eyes. This choice was worse than killing Lin Ling. In the martial god world, those without cultivation were like lowly commoners, not to mention that Lin Ling had offended so many people. If Lin Ling became a cripple, the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, Lin Ling could leave after crippling his cultivation? Not to mention Lin Ling, even Tang Yue and the rest did not believe it. The one-eyed man was obviously tricking Lin Ling into crippling his own cultivation. I have enmity with the Grand Court Commandery and other forces, but I have no enmity with you. You can represent them and fight, but you want me to cripple my own cultivation? Lin Ling looked over, and the coldness in his eyes intensified. You refuse me? The one-eyed man laughed, and it was an evil laugh. It was as if in his life, no one had ever refused him, not even a dead man. The others in the sky sneered. This game was getting more and more interesting. After all, the one-eyed man was called the Soul Breaker King, and he was a notorious devil in the south. He killed people like flies, and he had once slaughtered hundreds of people. Although Lin Ling was a demon, he was obviously a demon who had not grown up. If Lin Ling dared to refuse the Soul Breaker King, he would definitely suffer a terrible fate. It was said that the Soul Breaker King had 10,000 ways to torture people, making them wish they were dead. Perhaps, this was the reason why the Four Symbols True God had asked him to fight. 2 choices. I'll give you one last chance. The one-eyed man said again. Lin Ling looked at the sky calmly, but the murderous intent in his eyes was even more frenzied. Although he knew that leaving the crater would save him a tough fight, it was obvious that the one-eyed man had angered him. Alright, I'll give you 2 choices. 1 die. 2 be killed by me. Lin Ling stepped forwards and shot into the skies. The ancient sword behind him was grasped in his hand, and his lips curved up in an evil smile. Does this fellow not know that he will die here? He actually dares to speak such arrogant words. As the crowd looked at the tyrannical Lin Ling, their sneers became even thicker. Lin Ling had actually chosen this decision, thinking that he could make a comeback. He simply didn't know that everyone was just teasing him. But it had to be said that Lin Ling's courage had exceeded everyone's expectations. Ho ho! As the one-eyed man saw Lin Ling step into the skies, he laughed once more. But this laughter became even colder. He seemed to be angry. Because with his strength, Lin Ling actually didn't listen to him? Moreover, with so many people watching, he couldn't suppress Lin Ling. This made him feel as if his face had nothing to do with it. Soul Breaker King, there are 4 of us, but we have already killed an 8-stage World King Jr. So you should make the first move. As the other 3 people saw Lin Ling step into the skies, they lightly said. They held Lin Ling in contempt. Even if Lin Ling was at the peak of the World King realm, they still didn't place him in their eyes. A half-step true divinity master had their own pride. Good, I will make him wish he was dead. Soul Breaker King traced his chin. Then a rich demonic energy appeared from his body. A divine light protected his body as it fell from the skies. Moreover, this wasn't a simple divine light, but a demonic light. This was a first-grade awakened divine body, the great Maha-broken body. In the skies, a dazzling black light shot through the horizon. Soul Breaker King had attacked. His speed had reached the speed of 2 worlds. This meant that his speed could instantly pass through 2 worlds. It was terrifying to the extreme. A fist appeared in midair, seeming to absorb all the light in the skies, causing the world to turn pitch black. As Tang Yangyun and the others saw this, their complexions became extremely dignified. Although Soul Breaker King was at the same boundary as Chief Protector Tang Ming, the latter was far more brutal and merciless. No matter how many martial artists he killed, he wouldn't be moved at all. Often, such a ruthless and ambitious character would have a higher combat strength. Chapter 25-22. Underestimating the enemy, Your Highness, should we attack? Tang Ming immediately asked. This was because even if he fought with soul-breaking Luo King, he was confident he would lose after exchanging 3,000 moves. We can't attack. Tang Yangyun stared at the powerhouses in the skies and then shook his head. If they attacked, it would be in accordance with the wishes of the 4 true divinities. They would immediately attack. At that time, the battle would be over in less than an incense stick of time. Then we can only depend on him. Hearing this, Tang Ming let out a long sigh. Lin Ling, although you are a rising 2nd-generation talent, there are many monstrous geniuses in martial god world. You are only a little monstrous genius that has just gained some fame. At this time in the skies, the fist had already covered Lin Ling's entire body. This speed caused Lin Ling's pupils to flash. What incredible speed! This soul-breaking Luo King was clearly much stronger than Tang Ming. It seemed that there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the infinite worlds. As Lin Ling thought this, he ignited the spacetime fire in his dantian. A heaven-shaking change immediately erupted. His cultivation boundary suddenly reached the 10th level of the World King realm. Without drawing his sword, Lin Ling chose to collide with his fist. Flames and dark demonic energy wildly collided in the skies. Even Tang Ming was surprised by Lin Ling's choice. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, the demonic energy and flames completely erupted. A shockwave of world essence appeared and two figures shot out from it. It was Lin Ling and soul-breaking Luo King. Lin Ling was forced back even further. Moreover, blood dripped from his left hand and black demonic energy lingered above his wound. But Lin Ling's godly demon body was formidable and he immediately blocked the invasion of the demonic energy. On the other side, soul-breaking Luo King was much calmer. He gloomily glared at Lin Ling. This fellow is even more fierce than the rumors say. The powerhouses in the skies had dignified expressions. Before Lin Ling died, they were able to see Lin Ling's strength. This was enough to satisfy them. You have some skill. You blocked my move. Not bad. The first exchange allowed soul-breaking Luo King to understand Lin Ling's strength very well. He laughed sinisterly, his single eye flashing with a strange light. Blood sacrifice to the devil will I. Suddenly he let out a sharp cry as if countless bats were chirping at the same time. Invisible sound waves swept out, and those weaker martial artists immediately bled from their 7 orifices. Duanhun Luo King had obviously used his killer move. At the same time Lin Ling's pupils constricted. He sensed a mysterious force coming. The entire world seemed to be enveloped by it. It was a very evil force. Not good. Soon after Lin Ling let out a cry of surprise. He realized that his body had been imprisoned, and he couldn't move at all. He couldn't help but lower his head to look, and he immediately discovered that a demonic eye had appeared on his chest. It was this demonic eye that had sealed him. This was definitely the soul-breaking king's innate skill. Moreover, Lin Ling could sense that this innate skill carried a cold soul force attack. The strength of the Demon King powerhouses of the myriad worlds was indeed not to be underestimated. Is that all? At this time in the distance, Duanhun Luo King disdainfully snorted. He didn't reveal any arrogance, because the previous collision had allowed him to realize that Lin Ling's strength was only at this level. It simply wasn't enough to enter his eyes. He stepped forwards, walking towards Lin Ling step by step. A black light appeared behind him, as if it were a cloak formed from demonic shadows, making him seem mighty and awe-inspiring. To defeat you in 2 moves, you have truly disappointed me. However, you are still worthy of praise. You are clearly at the 8th level of the World King realm, but you have relied on some mysterious cultivation method to reach the 10th level of the World King realm. In addition to your 2nd-grade talent, you are truly a monstrous level genius. His voice seemed to dominate all, as if he were saying that no matter how monstrous Lin Ling was, once he fell into the hands of Duanhun Luo King, he was nothing but trash. Blood sacrifice to the devil will I. Facing Lin Ling, Duanhun Luo King actually used such an ultimate skill. Duanhun Luo King is famous for being cautious. Although Lin Ling is weak, he won't underestimate him. Duanhun Luo King, don't kill him. Looking at the imprisoned Lin Ling, many powerhouses sneered. This was far too simple. To defeat Lin Ling in 2 moves, this was truly disappointing. But on the ground, Tang Yue and the others' pupils shrank. Lin Ling was going to die? If Lin Ling died, then it would be their turn. At this moment, Tang Yue couldn't help but shout out, her voice mixed with worry. Unfortunately, no one was paying attention to her at this moment. But now, Duanhun Luo King had already arrived in front of Lin Ling. He indifferently looked at Lin Ling and said, Lin Ling, you are far too inexperienced. Although we martial artists are inferior to monstrous geniuses, we have cultivated for a longer time and have more experience. As for you geniuses, although your talent is good, you are nothing more than flowers in a greenhouse. In a true life or death battle, you cannot defeat us ancient martial artists. My blood sacrifice demon will I has imprisoned you. Unless your cultivation is stronger than mine, you will not be able to resist at all. Duanhun Luo King's voice was filled with confidence. This was because he had previously exchanged blows with Lin Ling, so he knew Lin Ling's strength very well. Don't think that you old monsters are the only ones with more experience. We are nothing more than flowers in a greenhouse. I have defeated more old monsters in the past than you have killed. However, just when everyone thought that Lin Ling would beg for mercy, Lin Ling spoke calmly instead. Duan Hun Luo King was taken aback by Lin Ling's words. Even at a time like this, Lin Ling still refused to submit? Ridiculous, this is ridiculous. Where does a stray dog get his pride from? Duan Hun Luo King couldn't help but laugh out loud. I said that I would give you two choices. First you die. Second I will kill you. But soon his smile froze. This was because Lin Ling, who he had imprisoned, was bursting with a towering battle intent at this moment. It was like an unsheathed sword, showing off its sharpness. Lin Ling, was he still hiding his strength? Could it be that Lin Ling had been trying to bewitch him in the previous exchange of blows, making him think that Lin Ling was only SOSO? But Lin Ling was only an 8-stage world king, so how could he possess such a formidable strength? At this moment, Duan Hun Luo King was stunned. He was dumbfounded. This was because he had already given Lin Ling a very high evaluation, but who would have thought that this evaluation was still too low? Are you surprised? In truth, your speed is at the speed of 2 realms. It is very difficult for me to catch up to you, so I could only wait for you to deliver yourself to me. Also, let me tell you something. A true life and death battle is not a head-on confrontation. All is fair in war. You have clearly been tricked. At this time, Lin Ling's long hair wildly danced in the wind. The demon eye floating around his chest also began to crack, unable to block the strength erupting from his body. This was because he had only used Heaven's Shocking Change before and hadn't fused his 2 dantians together. The reason he did this was because he wanted Duan Hun Luo King to think that Lin Ling was only SOSO. Of course, the most important reason was that Lin Ling's speed was inferior to Duan Hun Luo King's. This is bad. Duan Hun Luo King was increasingly surprised. Lin Ling's aura was tremendous. It had clearly surpassed the World King realm. Moreover, that fighting spirit was boiling over, as if it were crushing dry weeds. This was an unparalleled fighting spirit, an overbearing fighting spirit, and even more so, a raging flame. From within the imprisonment, a tyrannical fist mixed with raging flames shot out like a meteor. This strength was heaven-shaking and earth-shattering. If Duan Hun Luo King hadn't underestimated his opponent, then he wouldn't have received this strike. In fact, he could have easily avoided it. However, he was too close to Lin Ling. Chapter 25-23. All towards percussion. Bang. A terrifying punch landed on soul-breaking Luo Wang's chest, causing his body to freeze in the air. It's clear that compared to me, you are more like a flower in a greenhouse. At the same time, Lin Ling stepped forwards, slowly walking past Soulbreaker King. Soulbreaker King's eyes flashed. All was fair in war. He had clearly been tricked. Perhaps it was as Lin Ling had said. Compared to Lin Ling, he was more like a flower in a greenhouse. In terms of ruthlessness, in terms of experience, in terms of combat experience, he couldn't compare to Lin Ling. Bang. As he thought this, his entire body exploded. He was burned to death by multicolored flames. His eyes were also burned by the flames. He had died with his eyes wide open. Soulbreaker King died? The hearts of everyone in the sky shook. How could this be? Before, they had all wanted to see Lin Ling being tortured to death. Who would have thought that in the next moment, the one to die wasn't Lin Ling, but Soulbreaker King? And Soulbreaker King was a fierce and ruthless character of his generation. If he were to fight with the second generation of the 3 great academies, there would likely be no more than 10 people that could defeat him. But now he had still fallen. This proved that Lin Ling's strength, when placed amongst the second generation, was in the top 10 monstrous geniuses. What a freakish fellow. The 4 symbols true divinities didn't think that Lin Ling had already grown to such a degree. Even Tang Ming, who had fought with Lin Ling before, sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed that his evaluation of Lin Ling had been too low. Not only was Lin Ling a monstrous genius, but he also had a wealth of combat experience. The 4 of you came to fight me. Now that one of you has died, there are only 3 left. Before, you were the ones who attacked. Now it's my turn. Lin Ling walked forward step by step. With a shake of the tyrannical song sword in his hand, wisps of black azura chi swirled out, causing the cultivators who were watching the show in the sky to turn serious. Lin Ling's strength was definitely at the half-step true divinity realm. You are only at the 8th level of the Realm King realm, so why is your combat strength so strong? The 3 people in the sky all had solemn expressions on their faces. Because Duanhuan Luo Wang was very strong, they didn't dare to underestimate him, but he still died. This meant that they might not be Lin Ling's match in a one-on-one battle. Everyone has their own trump card, and I naturally have one too. I can tell you that without the true God realm, anyone who goes out to fight will die. Lin Ling didn't hide anything. Since it was a battle to the death, then he might as well use his full strength. He held the tyrannical song sword and rushed out like a stunning swan. His surging battle intent and cold sword Dao appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Especially the experts from Only Me Commandery and Tating Commandery, they all looked extremely solemn. Lin Ling had clearly become a huge problem. Fight, fight, fight. The three experts were not inexperienced people. At this moment, they also exploded with a terrifying aura and pounced towards Lin Ling. They were all at the half-step true divinity realm and had powerful chaotic force. Moreover, they could see that Duanhu and Luo Wang died because he underestimated his opponent, so they still had a chance. Voila! A white lake appeared from one of them as if it came from the chaos of the universe. Another person constantly pointed with two fingers, causing a large number of fireflies to float in the sky. The chaotic force was also terrifying. At the very least, their martial arts all had the chaotic force of the first or second level. The reason for that was because they were all level 4-dimensional origin martial techniques. Moreover, their ultimate martial arts had reached the true realm of Dao. As for 4th grade boundary martial arts, this wasn't something that World King experts could cultivate. Only true divinity realm experts could do so. Join forces and kill him. One of them roared. His attack was extremely ruthless. The experts in the distant sky had cold expressions. Facing a junior like Lin Ling, 3 true divinity realm experts joined forces. Even if Lin Ling died, it would be a glorious death. Sword come. Staring at the massive attack, Lin Ling's eyes flashed. After coming to the martial god world, this was the first time he had challenged so many experts. Half-step true divinity realm. Lin Ling didn't think that he would face such a powerhouse so soon. However, not only was Lin Ling not afraid, but his fighting spirit was boiling. The large sword in his hands danced in a tempting storm. As the large sword moved, it actually slashed the white lake away. What was even more terrifying was that Lin Ling didn't retreat at all. It was as if he was a tower that stood between the heavens and earth, unmoved even if the heavens collapsed. How can this guy be so strong? The powerhouse that controlled the white lake cried out in alarm. This was too strange. He was clearly at the 8th level of the World King realm, but his boundary essence was so thick that it was simply unprecedented. Moreover, when Lin Ling swung the ancient sword, he could feel a trace of the true realm of Dao within it. Evildoer, evildoer. As for the distant sky, the 4 symbols true god let out a dignified voice. Lin Ling brought him waves of surprise. In their grand court commandery besides Sun Bone, which other youth could compare to Lin Ling? No, there was none at all. This made him angry and jealous. Whoosh. At this moment, after Lin Ling slashed the white lake away, he immediately pounced on one of the powerhouses. He knew that his advantage was his massive boundary essence, so he had to end the battle quickly and destroy these powerhouses with his massive strength. A sword slashed out from his hand as if it was going to split the heavens and earth. This sword was so dazzling that it caused the eyes of countless powerhouses to flicker. Split the sky shield. One of the powerhouses panicked. In his eyes, Lin Ling was like the god of death from the 9 Serenities hell. Therefore, he didn't use any martial arts and directly unleashed his immortal treasure. Immediately, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. Countless Buddha shields appeared. There were thousands of them and they all blocked in front of the powerhouse. That's Tian Fengzi, the 2nd generation of the Buddhism department in the past Songling Academy. The crowd stared at the densely packed shields and they were all excited. In the Buddhism department of the 3 academies, Tian Fengzi's reputation was not weak. However, due to his limited talent, he couldn't advance to the next level and finally left Songling Academy. Now, Lin Ling was challenging his senior, the 2nd generation of the past. Lin Ling, come on. The powerhouse also roared. A huge Buddha appeared behind him, shining with golden light and illuminating the entire universe. A 1st-grade immortal treasure that raised the chaotic energy by 1 level. At this moment, Lin Ling's eyes were shining. The chaotic energy was stronger than the boundary essence. Currently, he had only comprehended 1 level of the chaotic energy by relying on the ultimate martial arts and the Ashura sword formation. As for the chaotic energy, it was normally born from the boundary essence martial arts. It was said that only those that surpassed the true divinity realm could completely control this mysterious strength. However, Lin Ling didn't place this powerhouse's chaotic energy in his eyes. Break for me. He ruthlessly slashed out with his sword. Playing with the chaotic energy? When Lin Ling was still at the 5th level of the World King realm, he had already touched upon the surface. Much less now that his strength had crazily risen. His sword seemed to become even larger, stirring up a storm of blood. If a god blocked it, it would kill a god. If a Buddha blocked it, it would destroy a Buddha. Ping ping ping. The shields immediately shattered, split in two. Moreover, it wasn't just one shield that shattered, but all of the shields were broken by a single sword strike. The second generation of the Zhongling Academy's pupils constricted at this moment. He never imagined that besides Lin Ling's terrifying cultivation boundary, his martial arts were also so terrifying. He was sure that Lin Ling's ultimate martial arts were no weaker than his. Chapter 25-24. Another person was killed. Shua. With his forehead as the center, a sword light cut him in half. His pupils widened. Even in his dreams, he never imagined that death would descend upon him so suddenly. And as the crowd saw Lin Ling cut down another half-step true divinity powerhouse, they could feel just how terrifying Lin Ling was. Those people that had mocked Lin Ling before were now trembling. Without a true divinity powerhouse present, could it be that they couldn't kill Lin Ling? As for the two half-step true divinity powerhouses that were still alive, their complexions were incomparably dignified. What a terrifying genius. What if Lin Ling reached the peak of the World King realm? Then wouldn't he be able to kill a true divinity powerhouse? Die for me, burning sky meteor. Burn. At this moment, the powerhouse that was already preparing a powerful attack pushed his two heads forwards. The light that had been frozen in the sky also began to flash. Then, as if it had locked onto its target, it shot towards Lin Ling. My talent can continuously draw out the world's spiritual energy. I know you can block it, but I want to know just how long you can last. The powerhouse's eyes were red with rage. At this point he didn't believe that Lin Ling couldn't block his attack. But his talent was heaven-defying. It was able to summon the world's spiritual energy and continuously attack. With this method, if he were to fight with a martial artist of similar strength, he would be nearly invincible. After all, even if he could block one move, could he block 100 or even 1,000? Burning sky meteor, this is a method to summon meteors from the universe. Looking at this powerhouse, many people's minds shook. They could feel the mighty power that came from the universe. It was grand, sacred, and ancient. The Void Bee has already cultivated in the universe for 8,000 years. Has he finally managed to communicate with the universe? An old man frowned. The Void Bee he spoke of was extremely fierce. He had cultivated in the universe for 8,000 years, but how could an ordinary person withstand such loneliness? And the effects of 8,000 years of bitter cultivation were obvious. At the very least, the Void Bee was able to communicate with the universe and borrow its strength. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Countless stars shot out like meteors, forming a beautiful scene as they shot towards Lin Ling. It was as if there were millions of bees dancing in the sky. It had to be said that this move was very beautiful. It was called burning the heavens. Dang dang dang. At the same time, Lin Ling's ancient sword danced, constantly cutting away the light that shot towards him. What surprised him was that this strength from the universe wasn't shooting in a straight line. Lin Lin Ling, and Lin Lin Ling. As expected, Lin Ling sent a large number of meteors flying, but the sky in front of him was still dazzling. It was as if more eyes had appeared. The next moment, the meteors shot towards him again. Lin. Seeing this, Lin Ling thought to himself, endless attacks could exhaust a person to death, unless he had the strength to directly destroy them. At this moment, Lin Ling also realized his own weakness. The power of his world essence was formidable and his defense wasn't weak, but his weakness was his speed. Otherwise, he would have been able to pass through the surrounding light and unleash a sure kill strike. Void Bee is still the most ruthless. Seeing Lin Ling constantly block, the powerhouses in the sky were shaken. Lin Ling would eventually die from exhaustion. Lin Ling, you should be proud of yourself. With your 8th level World King cultivation you defeated 2 of us. Among the second generation, if not you, who else can be? But your arrogance will end here. Realizing that Lin Ling could only block and couldn't resist, the powerhouse called Void Bee's aura surged. He was clearly more cautious than Soul Break King. If he didn't approach Lin Ling, then Lin Ling wouldn't be able to display his advantage. Thinking like this, a proud smile appeared on his face. Azura Sword Array. Lin Ling also knew that it would be difficult to win by relying on world essence. Thus, he immediately activated the ancient sword array. Above the Tyrant Song sword, black sword shadows appeared one after another, floating behind Lin Ling. The sword tips all pointed at Void Bee. In his heart, soul-breaking Luo King was the strongest among the 4 of them. Next would be the one called Void Bee. In the next moment, 49 swords shot out, forming an ancient sword array that destroyed everything. You still have other methods? But I want to see if your attacks are stronger or if mine are stronger. Void Bee's eyes flashed. Lin Ling was definitely going all out. He only needed to block those swords and then he would win this final battle. His finger pointed to the sky and pressed down. Above his head, more light shot out, shooting towards the Azura sword array, forming a magnificent scene of a hive of bees. However, he had underestimated the might of the Azura sword array. Clang. The moment the 49 swords shot out, they were unstoppable. The light melted like tofu. Under the lead of the black sword, the swords were getting closer and closer to Void Bee, causing his pupils to constrict. His burning sky meteor could continuously attack, but those swords easily destroyed all of his attacks. Then, even if there was an endless stream, it would not be able to stop the arrival of the swords. You're using a 5th grade sword martial art. Void Bee was worthy of being an expert who had cultivated for 10,000 years. After pondering for a moment, he immediately understood. It's too late to know now. On the other side, Lin Ling said indifferently. He was still brandishing the ancient sword to block the light. However, he believed that before he could completely block it, Void Bee would die. Die for me. At this moment, Void Bee's face became anxious. He activated more light in an attempt to block those ancient swords. Unfortunately, he was unable to use any of them. Under the lead of the lead sword, the Azura sword array could be said to be unstoppable. Sword heart, that sword heart. The 4 symbols real gods had been staring at the Azura sword array all this time. Finally, they cried out in surprise. This was the true realm of Tao of the ultimate sword art. Moreover, not everyone could comprehend the sword heart at this realm. Once the sword heart appeared, it also represented the Tao heart. The surprises this guy brings us are endless. The 4 symbols real gods said in shock. Fortunately, Lin Ling still had to die today. Otherwise, with Lin Ling's talent, their Tating commandery would definitely have provoked a formidable enemy. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Sure enough, in the eyes of those experts, Void Bee's body was penetrated by the Azura sword array. Before he died, he pointed at Lin Ling as if he wanted to say something. However, in the end he did not say anything. The 3rd expert of the half-step true god realm had fallen. Seeing this scene, the faces of the experts in the sky and on the ground turned serious. Although many people knew that Lin Ling was a monstrous genius, it was only when they saw it with their own eyes that they realized where Lin Ling's monstrous talent lay. With just the strength of an 8-stage world king, he had killed 3 half-step true god realm experts. If such a battle record did not appear before their eyes, they would have thought it was just a rumor. I don't want to fight. Chapter 25-25. A true divinity powerhouse came out to battle. He had seen Lin Ling defeat his opponents one by one with his own eyes. This caused him to lose all will to fight. You don't want to fight? After Space Bee died, the light in the skies also vanished. Thus, Lin Ling stood in the skies, looking at the last remaining person. This person knew they weren't his match, so they wanted to leave without a fight? This was a life or death battle, how could he give up halfway? I have to fight even if I don't want to. Lin Ling forcefully pressed forwards. He galvanized the sword array and shot it towards the last powerhouse. You are too cruel. I admit defeat and you still want to fight? The powerhouse's face flushed red. He retreated again and again, cursing out loud. Today he had clearly lost all face. Facing a World King Jr., he didn't dare to fight. However, even if he didn't dare to fight, Lin Ling still didn't plan on letting him go. He wanted to kill him to the end. This was pushing things too far. A dead man doesn't need to speak so much nonsense. Seeing his opponent retreat, the killing intent in Lin Ling's eyes became even thicker. He coldly shouted and the Azura sword array slashed out. With a loud crackling sound, the powerhouse was cut down by the sword array. His body emitted a firecracker-like sound as if something had shattered. Then he was cut into pieces. The 4 half-step true divinity powerhouses had all died in battle. Of course, although Lin Ling seemed calm, the truth was that he had consumed a great deal of energy. There wasn't much world essence left in his 2 dantians. Can we leave now? Looking at the surprised crowd, Lin Ling lightly said. The powerhouses of the various influences in the skies were silent. From start to finish, they didn't think that Lin Ling would win. But reality had given them a ruthless slap in the face. Now they wanted to let Lin Ling leave? I don't have any objections, but that doesn't mean they don't. The great 4 symbols true divinity said. The powerhouses behind him coldly nodded. How could they allow Lin Ling to leave? In particular, after seeing Lin Ling's monstrous strength, this was even more impossible. They really are going back on their words. Tang Yue's eyes were filled with rage as she looked at the shameless faces of those experts in the sky. Although she had long known that the other party would not let Lin Ling go, the Great Four Symbols' true gods used this sort of excuse. This gave people the feeling that it was too despicable. That's right. The Great Four Symbols' real god is a man of his word. Lin Ling, you should be grateful. However, you have yet to pass our test. One of the princes from Only Me Commandery said in a righteous tone. Hee, what an irony. You people from the four commanderies are really shameless. However, I have never believed your words. Lin Ling sneered. Of course he would not believe what these people said. Especially after he had shown his strength, these people could not wait to kill him. Then he raised his sword and said fearlessly, okay, then let's continue to fight. Anyone below the true god realm can come except for my commandery. You guys are very proud. Now let your geniuses fight as many as you want. When these words came out, the faces of the experts from Only Me Commandery turned ugly. As many as they wanted? Lin Ling was looking down on them. Luo shall fight. Let him see the power of Only Me Commandery. The prince from Only Me Commandery shouted angrily. Then he looked at the people behind him and said, how could he, Only Me Commandery, allow Lin Ling to humiliate everyone? Unfortunately, the people behind him did not dare to fight. Without a true god realm expert, they really did not dare to face Lin Ling. Prince I. The expert named Luo Xiao said awkwardly. In his opinion, Lin Ling was bound to die. However, it would be too easy for Lin Ling to die with him. Therefore he did not want to fight. Trash. The prince's eyes turned cold. He was really going to be looked down upon by Lin Ling. Haha, Great Yuan Mansion, what about you guys? At this moment, Lin Ling's heroic voice floated out again as he pointed his sword at Great Yuan Mansion. However, although there were many experts there, those below the true god realm did not dare to fight. Therefore they were all gnashing their teeth in anger, but there was nothing they could do. Are you all just a motley crew? Lin Ling roared and suppressed the group of heroes with his words. How majestic. Tang Yangyun and the others on the ground laughed excitedly when they noticed the silence in the sky. One person was enough to make the experts of the major forces not dare to fight. This made the major forces lose face. You are so arrogant. In that case, I will fight with you. At this moment, a sarcastic laugh suddenly rang out. A bald old man walked out gloomily. Then, before Lin Ling could speak, he pointed his finger at him. Boy, let me give you some advice. Rumble. The enormous power caused the Nine Dragons realm to shake, and the finger immediately became enormous, covering the sky and the sun. Lin Ling's eyes narrowed. True immortal realm? True god. This also meant that the experts of the major forces did not want to lose face. Therefore they sent the experts of the true god realm to fight. This was simply shameless. Ghost drinker. Looking at the old man who walked out, Tang Yangyun could not help but curse. Do you have any shame? They already said that anyone below the true god realm can fight. You are already in the true god realm. You actually have the nerve to fight? Moreover, you attacked a junior without saying anything. You are simply a disgrace to the heavenly court. That ghost drinker was obviously an expert from the heavenly court. However, his curse was only exchanged for the old man's disdainful smile. Rumble. At this moment, the huge finger suppressed Lin Ling. Before it got close, Lin Ling spat out a mouthful of blood. The ancient sword blocked in front of him in an attempt to block the huge force. The other party did not use martial arts or talent. Just the strength of the true god realm made it difficult for Lin Ling to resist. The true god realm and the half-step true god realm seemed to have a difference of 2 words, but in fact, it was the difference between heaven and earth. Old ghost, I will kill you. Lin Ling didn't think that the other party would attack him like this. His eyes turned red as he roared out loud. But, he was still smashed into the crater by the giant finger, causing a massive amount of divine crystals to fall to the ground. You have no strength and yet you speak such arrogant words. Do you want to die? The old man's eyes stared at Lin Ling as he disappeared into the earth. He mockingly smiled, not caring about Lin Ling's words at all. You're just a world king. No matter how monstrous a genius you are, in front of a true god you are nothing more than a cricket in a bowl. You can play with me however you want. Even if I let you use a single hand, you still cannot touch me. The old man's disdainful words carried with them a domineering aura. Of course, he also had the ability to be domineering. Haha, the Lin Ling from before was so arrogant, but now he is nothing more than a stray dog. I want to see just how arrogant this Lin Ling is. Ghost drinker, let him know how fierce you are. Seeing Lin Ling defeated in a single move, a massive amount of laughter immediately spread out. Many powerhouses felt proud and elated. After all, they had been suppressed by Lin Ling and had lost a great deal of face. Let alone one hand, even if I let him use both hands he still wouldn't be able to do anything to Ghost Drinker. Chapter 25-26. Even a true divinity powerhouse must die. Bang. But just as his voice fell, the earth began to shake. A figure shot into the skies as if he had rushed out from a divine mine. As he rushed out, he brought with him a massive amount of divine crystals. They sparkled like stars in the sky, extremely dazzling. This figure was Lin Ling. Still not dead? Ghost Drinker's eyes flashed as he indifferently said. However, just as his voice fell, a foreboding feeling rose within him. Lin Ling's speed seemed to instantly rise. Moreover, the strength of his body seemed to become even greater. As he was thinking this, Lin Ling's attack arrived in front of him. Although this fist seemed ordinary, it actually contained an unparalleled strength. You want to injure me with just you? Seeing Lin Ling take the initiative to attack, Ghost Drinker coldly snorted. He crossed his arms in front of him, blocking. But after being struck by the fist, he was immediately sent flying backwards by a mysterious strength, crashing into the pit. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The pit shook once more. Countless divine crystals were sent flying hundreds of meters into the air. The skies were calm, a deathly silence. Lin Ling had sent a true divinity powerhouse flying? Countless eyes looked at Lin Ling floating in the air. They discovered that Lin Ling had blood dripping from the corners of his mouth. It was clear that when Lin Ling blocked Ghost Drinker's attack, he had suffered heavy injuries. But he had immediately counterattacked? An eye for an eye? But Lin Ling was only at the World King realm, yet he had actually counterattacked a true divinity powerhouse? True divinity was a powerhouse that stood at the peak of the martial arts pyramid. Not to mention the myriad worlds, but even within the martial god world, this was a strength that couldn't be underestimated. And within the 3 great academies, this was the standard of a first-generation powerhouse. Such a powerful character had actually been sent flying backwards? In that instant, Blue Rain Academy's second-generation powerhouse Tang Jie's pupils trembled. This was because he was well aware just how powerful a true divinity powerhouse was. If it were him, he feared he wouldn't be able to touch a single hair on Lin Ling's head. Rumble. Then a figure flew out of the crater. It was Ghost Drinker. His face was extremely gloomy. You actually sent me flying? Didn't you say that I wouldn't be able to touch you even if you let me use one hand? On the other side, Lin Ling wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and mocked. As a matter of fact, Lin Ling was no match for a true Immortal realm expert. His previous strength came from Queen Xianxia. After all, it was impossible for Lin Ling to defeat a true Immortal realm expert with his own strength. His words undoubtedly caused Ghost Drinker's eyes to turn red. An enormous power erupted from his body in an unstoppable manner. His killing intent was extremely strong. Your desperate attack only sent me flying. You don't have the right to mock me. He was clearly enraged. Seeing this, Lin Ling's lips curled into an evil smile. Although it's the first time I, Lin Ling, have killed a true Immortal realm expert, I've actually lost count of how many of them I've killed. Today you'll be the first true Immortal realm expert to die in my hands. In the past, Li Xiaoyao had killed a true Immortal realm expert like killing a dog. Today Lin Ling had yet to reach such a level. However, he could set a precedent now. Boom. Powerful boundary essence erupted from Lin Ling's body. Layer upon layer, it caused the sky to explode. This is the power of a true Immortal realm expert. The hearts of countless cultivators trembled as they sensed the raging power. Lin Ling was a monster? No, he was simply a monster. This guy is so mysterious that I can't see through him. Even Tang Yangyun's eyes narrowed. He didn't know where Lin Ling's strength came from. Hehe, you're just a trash at the first stage of true Immortal realm. How dare you be so arrogant? At this moment, Queen Qianji's voice appeared in Lin Ling's mind. Lin Ling, I'll lend you my strength. However, I'm afraid you won't be able to last long with your dantian. Don't worry. My divine devil body isn't for show. At least, compared to others, I can last longer. Lin Ling's evil smile became even wider. His body seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Powerful energy surged from his dantian, making him feel like he was roaring at the sky. This kind of power hadn't appeared for a very long time. Ah. At the same time, Lin Ling's laughter drifted out from his mouth. Rumble. He threw out a punch and the sky immediately shattered like glass. Dew Drinker Ghost wanted to kill Lin Ling, but at this moment, his eyes trembled violently. What a terrifying power. Boom. He could not block that punch at all. That punch looked simple, but it was at least at the 5th stage of True God Realm. His face was smashed askew and his bones were cracking at this moment. Old Ghost, you're not qualified to put on an act in front of me. Bang. Under countless gazes, Dew Drinker Ghost was beaten up like a sandbag by Lin Ling. He was sent from the sky into the crater, and then from the crater to the sky. Overpowered. Completely overpowered. Is this still the same Dew Drinker Ghost who wanted to use both hands? Bang. The experts in the sky were all stunned. The reality in front of them made them feel terrified. They just realized that compared to Tang Yangyun, Lin Ling was the most terrifying existence. On the ground, Tang Yangyun and the others were extremely excited. They never thought that the one who was being tortured was Dew Drinker Ghost. It had to be known that the elites who came to the heavenly pit today were all well-known figures. These elites were arrogant and had long been accustomed to looking down on all living things. But now, a rising star had completely slaughtered all the elites on the divine pedestal stage. This was undoubtedly a dream. Aren't you arrogant? Show me your arrogance. Boom. Don't think that just because you're at the true God realm, I need to look up to you. Boom. In Dew Drinker Ghost's ears, Lin Ling's mocking voice kept ringing, making Dew Drinker Ghost's heart feel at a loss, anger, and even fear. He couldn't understand how Lin Ling could suddenly increase his power to such a terrifying level. Boom. Following the last punch, Dew Drinker Ghost's neck was gripped by Lin Ling like a dead dog. And Lin Ling looked at Dew Drinker Ghost with an icy gaze, secretly shocked at this guy's endurance. Indeed, after reaching the true God realm, one's vitality was incomparably strong. What do you want to say now? However, Lin Ling still opened his mouth indifferently. Dew Drinker Ghost raised his head with difficulty and just wanted to speak, but Lin Ling urged out a huge force. Bang. Dew Drinker Ghost's neck was directly crushed by Lin Ling, blood splattering in all directions. Lin Ling knew that Dew Drinker Ghost definitely had a lot to say. Because Dew Drinker Ghost did not think that Lin Ling could kill him like this. Of course, this ancient expert might also be regretting it. He did not expect that because of fighting, he would not be able to see the sun tomorrow. However, Lin Ling did not have time to listen to a dead person's nonsense. Blah. Chapter 25-27. He was willing. Ghost Drinker was a veteran expert of the heavenly court. He had traveled through the 4 realms and even the 9 states. It was a form of pride for a warrior to be able to leave the green state. It was a form of recognition of strength. However, when he returned home in glory, he wanted to make his name known again in the green state. However, he died in the 9 dragons realm today. Lin Ling, what kind of person is he? That great 4 symbols true God looked at Lin Ling with furrowed brows. He completely did not think that this game of toying with Lin Ling would ultimately develop into this. Even a true God realm powerhouse was obliterated too. Was he still an ant in his eyes? He could not help but recall that a long time ago, a young master of the Grand Court Commandery had appeared in the sacred rainforest and was looking for the Sun God tribe that had been chased out of the Grand Court Commandery. However, that young master had died in the hands of a young man. Moreover, the entire branch family had died. This had undoubtedly angered the arrogant Grand Court Commandery. Subsequently, they had also found out that the young man was called Lin Ling and had appeared in the martial god barracks. Subsequently, they had thought that Lin Ling would definitely die for offending the Grand Court Commandery. However, who would have thought that Lin Ling would escape the calamity time and time again and increase his strength at a crazy rate? Now, this demon had fully grown his wings and even a real god expert would hate him in the underworld. Even the sun god of the 9 heavens of the green state would be ashamed of his speed of growth. Kill, we must kill him. Kill. Thinking of this, the great 4 symbols real god's eyes turned red. The more Lin Ling displayed his strength, the more his desire to kill Lin Ling burned like a volcano. Of course, he was not the only one. It was the same for the others. Since they had become enemies, they had to eliminate the source of trouble. You know that you can't leave here alive today. Kill. The great 4 symbols real God said in a cold voice. His voice was unprecedentedly serious. Kill him. Kill. Under his voice, the experts of the major forces also spoke. They were very sure that if Lin Ling returned to the martial god barracks, his strength would definitely be the number 1 among the 2nd generation. Therefore, they had to stop Lin Ling's footsteps and prevent him from flying higher. Even some experts who had no enmity with Lin Ling wished they could kill Lin Ling at this moment. That was because everyone was selfish. They didn't want a rising star to be above their heads. If they couldn't obtain it, then they would destroy it. Kill. Kill. The entire sky was filled with murderous voices, causing Tang Yangyun and the others on the ground to turn pale. What was supposed to come had finally returned. Tang Yangyun let out a long sigh. Although he knew that he would die, Lin Ling's death would be even more regrettable. If an 8-stage realm king already had such strength, then what would happen in the future? What a pity, what a pity. Even the army behind him felt sorry for Lin Ling. At this moment they didn't blame Lin Ling because if such a monstrous genius died with them, what else could they be unwilling to accept? Lin Ling, did you hear that? Everyone wants you dead. The Great Four Symbols' real god sneered when he sensed the overlapping voices in the sky. Lin Ling's gaze swept over and his expression became even colder. He could understand why Grand Court Commandery and my commandery wanted him dead. However, those experts who had no enmity with him also wanted him dead. It seemed that those people were jealous, in awe, and even afraid of him. Since you all want me dead, then come. Lin Ling's long hair fluttered wildly at this moment. In this life he had experienced countless life and death tribulations. What was there to be afraid of? At worst he would die and reincarnate again. Since Lin Ling had chosen this path, he would never regret it. Just like those who provoked him and died at his hands, since they chose to provoke him they had to face death. It wasn't that they made the wrong choice. Sometimes Lin Ling made the wrong choice as well. However, the path was one's own choice. No matter how difficult it was, he had to resolutely walk it. Lin Ling will accompany you. Tang Yangyun and the others knew that the final battle was coming. At this moment, all of them began to float up. Of course, their addition didn't cause the Great Four Symbols' real god and the others to have any scruples. This was because they had more powerhouses on their side and could catch them all in one fell swoop. At present, only Tang Yangyun was a true immortal powerhouse. As for Lin Ling, he also had this strength with the help of a mysterious cultivation method. Two true immortals weren't enough to cause them to be moved. In fact, they didn't know that Lin Ling was extremely weak at this moment. Even an ordinary world king could defeat him. After experiencing so many battles, he was already exhausted. It looks like you all wish to die. Then we'll help you out. Kill. The Great Four Symbols' true god couldn't restrain his killing intent. He took the lead and flew out. The others also did the same, forming a massive killing cloud in the skies. My lord, I didn't think we would die together with you. Tang Yue smiled from beside Lin Ling. This surprised Lin Ling. He thought that Tang Yue would blame him, but he discovered that she didn't. I'm sorry. I've dragged you all down with me. Lin Ling looked at the others and wryly smiled. At this time, what's the point of saying such things? Let's prepare for the bitter battle ahead. Kill as many as you can. If you kill one, then you've made a profit. If you kill 10, then you'll go to hell and King Yama will reward you. Tang Yangyun smiled, his words free and easy. Good. Just because of these words of yours, I, Lin Ling, will kill 100 people. Hearing this, Lin Ling felt a sense of heroism. He then looked at Dao Dai and wanted to say sorry for dragging them down. However, Dao Dai and the others shook their heads and didn't say anything. They had used their actions to prove their determination. Since they had chosen to believe in Lin Ling, they had no choice but to face the situation calmly. Lin Ling had once told them that they had to be willing to sacrifice to gain something. Only by sacrificing their lives could they gain more. If they lost the bet, it meant that they were only SOSO. There was no such thing as luck on the path of martial arts. Strength came with danger. Let's fight. Lin Ling raised his sword and looked ahead coldly when he sensed the excited gazes of the crowd. Come and kill me. Let's see if you have any teeth. What arrogance. On the other side, the Great Four Symbols' true god roared and grabbed at Lin Ling. He wanted to be the first to kill Lin Ling. Queen Xianxia, prepare to fight to the death. I'm going to use the space-time divine steel. Lin Ling drew out all the remaining energy and an ancient divine steel appeared in his right eye. Wait. However, just as the two forces were about to collide, an indifferent voice suddenly rang out. It was like a giant hand that caused the earth-shattering aura to disappear instantly. The voice seemed to have come from a faraway place. However, it had a mysterious rhythm that prevented the Great Four Symbols' true god from attacking. At this moment, the Great Four Symbols' true god and the others narrowed their eyes and felt great pressure in their hearts. Rumble. In just a moment, the sky cracked open and lightning flashed. Along with the dazzling lightning, a white skeleton appeared from the void. Gradually, everyone could see that it was the skeleton of a huge lightning dragon. Chapter 25-28. Thunder dragons pulling the chariot. Crack, crack, crack. Tens of thousands of thunder dragon skeletons flew out from the void, pulling an ancient bronze chariot. On the chariot, a scholar was drinking wine and looking at the crowd with a smile. The scholar was very elegant. He wore a loose brown robe and looked lazy. He had a flagon of wine in his right hand and a scroll in his left. It was as if he had traveled thousands of miles and read thousands of books. However, his aura made everyone's heart tremble. A touch of heavenly power suppressed everyone's heart. Thunder dragon skeletons. Lin Ling's eyes narrowed. Long Patian, whom he had defeated, had become the third-generation genius with the help of the Thunder Dragon skeletons. Now the scholar was using Thunder Dragons as his mounts. Not only one but tens of thousands of them. However, after being surprised, Lin Ling's lips curled into a smile. Because he had waited for so long. What's going on? At this moment, the four symbols' real gods looked at the scholar in horror. Using Thunder Dragons to pull the chariot, how extravagant. The scholar sitting on the war chariot gulped down another mouthful of wine. Then he looked at the crowd with a smile. That smile gave people a feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze. Come out. Then, the scholar closed the scroll and waved his hand lightly. In the sky behind him, roaring sounds continued to be heard. Bone chariots flew out one after another. Their aura was so terrifying that it shook the Nine Dragons' realm. These experts seemed to have surpassed the true god realm. How terrifying. The crowd trembled. When did the North Territory attract such experts? Shouldn't they be in the 9 states? Moreover, what exactly were the origins of these powerhouses whose strength reached the heavens and the earth? Even Tang Yangyun's face was pale. He was sure that Square Commandery was like a grain of rice compared to this great power. If they wanted to destroy Square Commandery, it would only take them 2 hours. Senior, I am from Tating Commandery, an ally of the great Qing divine dynasty. May I know why you are here? After a short silence, the four symbols' real god immediately bowed. He did not dare to say the name of Tating Commandery. Only by mentioning the name of the great Qing divine dynasty would he be qualified to speak. As soon as he bowed, everyone behind him also bowed in fear. There's no need to be so courteous. I'm only here to look for someone. Unexpectedly, the scholar was easy to talk to, but Lin Ling sneered at the voice. Was that really the case? The great four symbols' true god obviously didn't expect the other party to be so easy to talk to. Could it be that the other party was giving face to the great Azure God dynasty? He couldn't help but smile and say, "May I know Senior's name?" "We don't have a proper name. We're just the Creator Alliance." The scholar was still smiling. Boom. As soon as his voice fell, everyone's hearts exploded, as if they had seen the most terrifying thing in their lives. Creation Alliance, 9 states, 10 ferocious. This was an alliance of elites whose ominous name had spread throughout the 9 prefectures. It was said that the members of this alliance were all madmen, and their goal was to create a new world. Wherever they went, there would be a reign of terror. And this ancient and powerful pillar had actually appeared in front of their eyes today. At this moment, everyone felt their hearts turn cold, incomparably cold. Now that the Creator's Alliance had arrived, there was only one outcome for them, and that was death. You have my illusory lightning jade pendant? Just when everyone was like cicadas in winter, that scholar swept his gaze over and suddenly stared at Lin Ling as he spoke. His words caused the 4 true deities to draw in a breath of cold air. Lin Ling was acquainted with such an expert? Indeed. Lin Ling knew the scholar's intention and immediately nodded with a smile. Seeing Lin Ling nod, the scholar's expression remained calm, but Lin Ling could clearly sense a hint of excitement in his eyes. "Bring me to see her." As expected, the scholar immediately said. He no longer had the scholarly look from before and he was obviously anxious. At this moment, the image of that cute little fox had already appeared in his mind. Although they had only met once, perhaps it was fate that had left him with an indelible memory. In the endless years that followed, he had been waiting for the little fox's voice, but the voice transmission talisman he had left for the little fox did not respond. This caused his heart to turn to ash. This also caused him to become cruel and ruthless. In a fit of anger, he had once exterminated the population of 5,000 worlds. Unfortunately, anger could not change reality. In the years that followed, he continued to search for the little fox in the 4 worlds, climbing countless mountains and traversing vast oceans and ancient rivers. Unfortunately, the little fox that he had met once in the past had disappeared without a trace. In the end, he was sure that the white fox was dead. However, not long ago he finally received a voice transmission. At that moment, he had given up on the battle with his mortal enemy and rushed over from the distant southern border. When he arrived here and saw Lin Ling nod, he was excited. If not for the fact that there were so many people around, his eyes would have already moistened. If only life was like the first time we met. No one would have thought that this ruthless and ruthless person would have the heart of a tiger sniffing a rose. Yes, but there is a condition. Just as he was waiting for Lin Ling's reply, Lin Ling suddenly smiled faintly. "How dare you?" After Lin Ling's voice, the experts behind the scholar immediately shouted angrily. Their orderly aura caused the clouds to roll in the sky. Even the 4 symbols' true god and the others turned pale. Lin Ling had actually rejected the Creator Alliance? He was courting death. He was definitely courting death. Senior, who are you looking for? We can help you. This guy who doesn't know what's good for him is better off killing him. The four symbols true god pondered for a moment before immediately speaking. Perhaps this was their only chance of survival. That's right. If he's in the Nine Dragons realm, we'll go through fire and water to find him. The others also spoke up one after another, grasping at the last straw of hope. No need. However, the scholar didn't even look at them. He simply said that he didn't need it, and his words were accompanied by a strong killing intent. It was as if he did not like others interrupting when he was speaking. Once someone interrupted, the outcome would be death. Rumble. The experts behind the four symbols true god immediately began to melt. Their flesh and blood dripped onto the ground like water, leaving only their bones floating in the sky. The terrifying thing was that these bones were still alive. They were the experts who had spoken before. How terrifying. Seeing this, Tang Yangyun and the others began to tremble. As for the four symbols true god and the others, their foreheads were full of cold sweat. They did not dare to move at all. The scholar continued to smile at Lin Ling as if he was doing the most normal thing. He seemed to be asking for Lin Ling's opinion. Lin Ling's heart also trembled. He was sure that this scholar was an even more ancient existence than Li Xiaoyao. Of course, if Li Xiaoyao was still alive, who was stronger and who was weaker would only be known after a battle. There's no free lunch in this world. If you want me to look for someone, I'll say it again. Promise me one thing. Chapter 25-29. All of them were dead. Lin Ling's personality was that the more unreasonable the other party was, the more fearless Lin Ling would be. Moreover, he had helped White Fox without any compensation, so the scholar should owe him a favor. If the scholar was so overbearing and unreasonable, Lin Ling would be disappointed. After all, White Fox had waited for so many years for such a man. Lin Ling felt indignant on her behalf. At this moment, the scholar picked up the wine jug and drank. He looked calm, but the experts behind him narrowed their eyes. Generally speaking, the calmer Lord Luchen was, the angrier he was. At that time, corpses would be strewn everywhere and blood would flow like a river. For a moment, the experts all looked at Lin Ling, thinking that Lin Ling did not know how to appreciate favors. Irrelevant people, leave this place immediately. However, just as they thought the scholar was going to kill someone, the scholar finished the jug of wine and looked at the people around him with a smile. He didn't kill anyone? The experts of the Creation Alliance were all shocked. Once, in the Eastern Territory, there was also a genius who was arrogant and domineering. When he saw Lord Luchen, he was not afraid. At that time, Lord Luchen was also all smiles as he drank a jug of wine. However, one moment he was elegant, the next moment he bared his fangs. Not only did he kill that genius, he even slaughtered that entire territory. This was the anger of an expert. No matter how talented that genius was or what kind of background he had, when he encountered Lord Luchen, even a dragon would have to bow before him. This was also the pride of an expert. And now, Lord Luchen had actually let those people go? This was the first time something like this had ever happened. We can leave now? Hearing this, the four symbols true gods were all delighted. But these godly oars. However, some people looked at the sinkhole unwillingly. This was how humans were. A moment ago, they were still worried about their own lives, but when their lives were no longer in danger, they would start to covet the rewards in front of them. After all, they had gathered here for a long time, and now they had not obtained anything. How could they be satisfied? In fact, they were even inferior to Tang Yangyun. At least the latter had robbed a lot of godly crystals. Do you want your lives or the godly ores? His Excellency spared your lives, you should be content. To think that there were people who were willing to sacrifice their lives for the divine crystals. This was a joke to the Creator's Alliance. These ants didn't know Lord Luchen's murderous nature. Otherwise they would have run far, far away from the Nine Dragons realm. No, let's go. After the great four symbols true god calmed down, he immediately waved his hand. His forehead was also covered in cold sweat. Only now did he remember what kind of ambitious and ruthless character he was facing. Wait. However, just when they thought they had escaped with their lives, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded out, and the voice was mixed with dense killing intent. Oh. Countless people looked at the person who spoke and discovered that it was Lin Ling. Big four symbols true god and the rest immediately sneered. This Lin Ling still dared to be arrogant at this moment? They couldn't help but look forward to what would happen next. Perhaps Lin Ling's arrogance would completely enrage the scholar. The condition I mentioned before is to kill all of them. If you agree, I'll take you to see her. At this moment, Lin Ling looked at the scholar with a determined gaze and sharp killing intent. Previously, everyone wanted Lin Ling dead. If there was a chance, Lin Ling would also kill everyone. Others wanted to kill him so he would kill them in return. Was that simple? How dare you? Hearing that, the great four symbols true God and the rest didn't expect Lin Ling to make such a request. Today, if not for the arrival of the Creators Alliance, Lin Ling would have been dead. Now, not only did Lin Ling not feel lucky, he wanted to kill them all? He was so arrogant that he couldn't see through himself. You think you have the right to make conditions with His Excellency? The others also looked coldly at Lin Ling. He didn't believe that the expert riding the lightning dragon would listen to Lin Ling. Are you sure? You should know that no one has ever made conditions with me before. If they do, the price will be great. At this time, the scholar looked at Lin Ling with surprise. After all, even a true Divinity Realm martial artist would feel fear and trepidation when encountering him. As for Lin Ling, he was only at the World King realm and yet he didn't seem to fear him at all. You have no other choice. However, the scholar thought that Lin Ling would be respectful to him. But Lin Ling only lightly replied. It was as if he were saying, "This is the only choice I can give you." Haha. The scholar couldn't help but laugh. As for the powerhouses of the Creators Alliance, they sucked in a breath of cold air. This youth's tone was far too bold. Even the great four symbols true God and the others believed that Lin Ling would undoubtedly die. They didn't leave for the time being. To be able to see Lin Ling die in front of their eyes was already an extremely good thing. Since I've come here, I already have a way to find her. Don't you think it's naive for you to use this to threaten me? After the scholar laughed, his complexion turned icy cold. When he laughed, he wanted to kill. When he was icy cold, he was even crazier when he killed. The powerhouses of the Creators Alliance hadn't seen Lord Lu Qin reveal such an icy expression for a long time. I know you can find her, but you've made her wait for endless years. Can you make up for all of this? This is what you owe her. A woman who has waited for you for so long isn't someone you can see just because you want to. Lin Ling lightly said. Bang. These words caused the scholar's heart to thump. Sincerity? Lin Ling seemed to want to see his sincerity. Most importantly, Lin Ling was speaking from the perspective of White Fox. This feeling was like Lin Ling was White Fox's little brother. He was fighting for his big sister's dignity. A woman had waited for him for endless years. Could he, Lu Qin, find her just because he wanted to? Perhaps Lin Ling also wanted to know his heart. I understand. A solemn expression appeared on the scholar's face. For the first time he took a deep look at Lin Ling. This was because he realized that this young man not only wanted to use him to kill the enemy, but he also wanted to test him. If this were to happen to anyone else, they would simply be courting death. However, for the sake of White Fox, he felt that everything was worth it. Everyone die. The scholar looked at the four symbols true gods and the others. An icy killing intent also emanated from him. What? My lord, don't listen to him. He's trying to drive a wedge between us. The four symbols true gods and the others narrowed their eyes. They could have left before, but they wanted to see Lin Ling die, so they stayed behind. However, what awaited them was the scythe of the Grim Reaper. You mean I'm stupid, so he's trying to drive a wedge between us? The scholar smiled, and there was a hint of mockery in his smile. I dare not. What I mean is that my lord has his own principles. How can you listen to the words of a minor character? Moreover, this minor character's strength is as weak as trash, but he repeatedly disrespected my lord. My lord, you should kill him as an example to others and prove your awe-inspiring name. The four symbols true gods hurriedly bowed and said, how could they do their best to make that scholar change his mind? Sorry, I'm a temperamental person. Occasionally, I also like to listen to the words of minor characters. However, the scholar tilted his head and replied indifferently. That calm voice undoubtedly made the four symbols true gods and the others turn ashen. Were they all going to die? Chapter 25:30. Nine Lanternfish. The person who controlled their lives was actually a junior at the World King realm. Because the scholar seemed to be in a good mood, he was planning to let them go. No. Lord, please spare us. Thinking of this, many people began to shout. Haha. Unfortunately, the scholar only smiled. He opened his mouth and spat out a black fog that filled the sky. A bone-chilling killing intent covered the entire sky. The powerhouses of the Creator Alliance licked their lips as if they were extremely interested in this massacre. Obviously, they had done this many times before. I don't want to die here. The sky was in chaos as countless lives were being devoured. As for the four symbols true God and the other powerhouses, they were no longer calm. Their faces were pale as they lost their cool in panic. However, the billowing black fog shrouded them and constantly devoured them, making it impossible for them to escape from the black fog. The people here are my people. Seeing the terrifying black fog, Lin Ling's expression turned solemn as he hurriedly shouted. Hearing Lin Ling's words, the all-devouring black fog drifted away and did not rush towards Tang Yongyun and the others. I've escaped. At this moment, at the edge of the black fog, the four symbols true god's figure appeared. He had actually escaped from the black fog. However, after he used all his strength to rush out, people were horrified to discover that the front half of his body was normal, but the back half of his body, including the back of his head, had turned into white bones. White bones on one side and flesh on the other. This was terrifying. What was even more terrifying was that the great four symbols true god didn't seem to notice this. He laughed heartily, but at the same time, the flesh and blood on the front half of his body began to melt like water. In the end, he was nothing but a skeleton. The skeleton was still laughing, its teeth and eye sockets were clearly visible. Moreover, the black fog in the sky seemed to have begun to disperse, revealing countless white bones. The powerhouses from before had all turned into white bones. They were not dead for the time being, but they were all looking at themselves in pain. Many of these powerhouses were indomitable existences in the Green Prefecture, especially the True God Realm powerhouses. They were the overlords of various forces, but now they were no different from mortals. In fact, they had died more miserably than ordinary people. How terrifying! Tang Yue said with a pale face. Could it be that the person Lin Ling was talking about is him? Tang Yongyun also said nervously. Lin Ling is really a madman. He actually asked the tiger for its skin. One had to know that if Lin Ling had lost the bet, the ones who would have turned into bones would have been them. In fact, Lin Ling's palms were sweating. He was indeed gambling, and if he lost, there was no need to think about the consequences. Fortunately, he made the right bet. A man who could make White Fox wait for thousands of years was not someone without principles. No. At this moment, the skeletons in the sky were getting weaker and weaker. They let out indignant cries and looked at Lin Ling with their empty eyes. Because it was Lin Ling who forced them to die. At this moment, many thoughts appeared in their minds. What if they had allowed Lin Ling to leave earlier? Perhaps they wouldn't die. This was because they also sensed that the Creator's Alliance had come for Lin Ling. This also meant that Lin Ling had brought disaster to them. I will not let you go even if I become a ghost. That great four symbols true deity said extremely weakly. Unfortunately, his bones began to age, producing cracks, breaking apart inch by inch. I don't want to die. Then, the four symbols real god let out a painful groan. He watched himself die without any pain. This feeling was indescribable. Moreover, if he had not come to the Nine Dragons realm, he would still be in existence above everyone else. However, this luxurious life was getting further and further away from him. In the end, the four symbols real god turned into broken bones and floated on the ground. As for the experts in the sky, their bones were also broken and fell to the ground one by one. Gradually, the experts of the major forces were all wiped out. Seeing the arrogant major forces turn into piles of yellow soil, Lin Ling and the others sighed. In the rainforest Holy Land, not to mention the true immortal realm, even the World King realm was like a god. However, even this godlike existence could not escape the laws of the world and return to the most basic existence. All of this felt unreal. Little friend, can you bring me there? Yes. The scholar looked at Lin Ling as if what he had just done was nothing out of the ordinary. Life, death, blooming and withering, this is the great law of the universe. They have only returned to the law. There is no need to be too surprised. The scholar said again, treating the deaths of these people as the great law of the universe. Follow me. Yes. Lin Ling did not waste time and led the scholar forward. As for the divine mine in the sinkhole, Lin Ling did not want to touch it. After all, with the arrival of the Creator's Alliance, the divine mine would obviously belong to them. Fortunately, they had looted a lot of divine mines before, so this trip was not a loss. The scholar asked the Creator's Alliance to stay behind while he followed Lin Ling alone. At this moment, his heart was also excited. Everyone's speed was very fast. Not long after, they arrived at the valley again. Little White. Staring at the valley, the scholar's expression was undoubtedly more excited. It seemed that without the others from the Creator's Alliance, he had also released his true self. Lin Ling even saw that the scholar's eyes were moist. Is this the array that trapped her? No wonder I couldn't find her after searching for so long. The scholar stared at the array, anger appearing on his face. He could imagine how long the white fox had been trapped in the array. If Lin Ling had not luckily encountered the array, then even with his monstrous strength, he might not have been able to find this place. In the end, he could only be separated from the white fox by life and death. Involuntarily, he looked at Lin Ling solemnly and finally bowed. He finally understood why Lin Ling had made such a request. It was because this was indeed a great favor. After I break the array, I will properly thank you. The scholar said word by word. No need. You helped me kill people and I brought you here. We don't owe each other anything. Moreover, I have important matters to attend to, so I will leave first. Lin Ling shook his head and said. With his current strength, it was very uncomfortable to come in contact with such an expert, so he did not plan to stay any longer. The scholar did not expect Lin Ling to be so straightforward. He thought that Lin Ling would make all kinds of requests. He quickly bowed again and said, Okay, after this I will look for you. At this moment he was not a formidable person who dominated the 9 states, but an ordinary person who owed him a favor. 9 lantern fish. After that he did not say much. He opened his mouth and spat out a terrifying talent. It was as if he had spat out a black ocean. In that ocean a huge black fish was tossing and turning. The chaotic aura was extremely dense in the universe. What was surprising was that the fish's head had 9 lantern-like tentacles hanging on it. Each lantern was of a different color and seemed to have a power that could not be underestimated. Seeing this, Lin Ling's expression became serious. Chapter 25:31. Anxious to return. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The fish opened its mouth and spat out a multicolored beam of energy that shot into the mountain valley like a column of water. Ka-ka-ka. The demon suppressing array formation of the mountain valley immediately shattered. Fragments of ancient spiritual energy shot out in all directions like chunks of ice. The ancient array formation couldn't block a single strike. This strength was terrifying, as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. It caused Lin Ling and the others to draw back. Little White. The scholar didn't care about the terrifying strength that erupted in front of him. He revealed a crazed smile and shot into the mountain valley. At the same time in the mountain valley, a woman in a white dress looked up at the skies. Her delicate body shivered. At this moment she was beautiful, extremely beautiful. Big Brother Lu. She also cried out in pleasant surprise. Then she also flew into the skies. In this moment, it was like they had returned to tens of thousands of years ago, to the first encounter between White Fox and the scholar. This was a relationship that traced back tens of thousands of years. Let's go. Seeing this warm scene, Lin Ling's heart also warmed. Then he waved his hand and led everyone away. Thinking about it, the scholar and young man also had thousands of words to say to each other. Thus, it was better to leave this moment to the two of them. Thank you. White Fox looked at the departing Lin Ling and knelt down in the air. After leaving the array formation, her strength had quietly recovered, surpassing the true divinity realm. However, facing the World King realm Lin Ling, she still knelt down. No matter how strong Lin Ling was, he was still her benefactor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But compared to White Fox's excitement, the scholar was even more excited. When all of this appeared in front of him, he knew just how great of a favor he owed this youth. A woman has waited for you for tens of thousands of years. Moreover, she has lived through these dry and dull years. This is rare. Don't let her down, otherwise I, Lin Ling, will be the first one to not let you go. Now accompany her and have a good chat. Lin Ling waved his hand with his back to the two of them and left in a carefree manner. Tang Yangyun's pupils shrank. Lin Ling wouldn't let the scholar go? Lin Ling's words were truly bold. Of course, of course. However, the scholar nodded heavily, as if he believed that if he let the White Fox down, Lin Ling would definitely not let him off. White Fox was stunned for a moment. Tears welled up in her eyes. At that moment, all the words she wanted to say turned into a single word of thanks, which was buried deep in her heart. Lin Ling led Tang Yangyun and the others out of the 9 Dragons realm, appearing in the chaos of the universe. Tisk tsk. Today's encounter is truly a silver lining. Little friend Lin Ling, you're still the best. Tang Yangyun looked at Lin Ling in surprise. At this moment he no longer had the airs of a senior. I was just lucky. Now let's split the loot. Lin Ling waved his hand and said with a smile. He hurriedly took out his divine crystal. The others immediately did the same, causing a large number of divine crystals to float around in the void. According to the previous agreement, I'll take 30%. Lin Ling licked his lips and immediately said with a smile. There were a lot of divine crystals, enough for him to use for a long time. The adventure this time was finally over. Not only had Lin Ling's strength greatly improved, but his harvest was also beyond his imagination. Let's split it 50-50. After all, we didn't do anything. Hearing this, the others spoke one after another. At this moment they were completely convinced by Lin Ling. That's right. Take 50%. Tang Yangyun also agreed. He knew that the real gods of the four symbols returned empty-handed. They even lost their lives. How could they not be satisfied with such a harvest? No need. 30% it is. I'm a man of my words. Lin Ling rejected Tang Yangyun's good intentions. He didn't like to raise the price after the event. How about this? I'll represent Square Commandery and owe you a favor. In the martial god realm, you only need to say one word and Square Commandery will move for you. Tang Yangyun pondered for a moment and said immediately. Tang Yue, who was beside him, couldn't help but smile. Lin Ling had unlimited potential and was connected to many powerful forces and experts. Now, the Square Commandery had a good relationship with Lin Ling, which was a good thing for Square Commandery. Okay. Lin Ling nodded. After taking his share of divine crystals, he waved his hand and left. Your Excellency, I'll wait for you in the martial god realm. Seeing Lin Ling leave, Tang Yue said with a smile. As expected, as someone who worked for Lin Ling, she would never lose out. Then you go back first. I'll be back to the Bright Academy soon. Also, thank you for your suggestion. Lin Ling shrugged. If Tang Yue hadn't asked him to come to the Nine Dragons realm, Lin Ling wouldn't have been able to gain so much. Therefore he was grateful to Tang Yue. Hearing this, Tang Yue nodded. After Lin Ling left, Tang Yangyun said, This Lin Ling is not simple. Princess Yue, you've finally grown up. You have your own choice and vision and you've made the right choice. It was Tang Yue who had decided to let them follow Lin Ling, and she had made the right bet. Lin Ling had controlled everything from the beginning to the end. He was the ruler of the entire Nine Dragons realm. Haha, following him has taught me to be decisive. Tang Yue looked into the distance and said. Her Excellency was probably the expert she would pursue for the rest of her life. At this moment, Lin Ling wasn't in a hurry to return to the Bright Academy. He had left the rainforest sacred ground for many years and he wanted to go back and take a look. Beside Lin Ling were Dao Dai and the others. They knew that Lin Ling had something to do and had to leave. Therefore they said gratefully to Lin Ling, thank you. We'll meet again next time. Okay, I hope we'll meet again. Looking at these friends who had fought side by side, Lin Ling felt a little reluctant, but he still replied with a smile. He knew that the martial god realm was too big. Therefore, friends like Dao Dai and the others were just strangers he had met by chance. It would be very difficult for them to meet again. However, all good things must come to an end. When it was time to leave, he still had to leave. Lin Ling said a few more words and then shot forward. Looking at Lin Ling's back, Dao Dai and the others had mixed feelings and spoke fiercely. If Lin Ling returns to the three great academies, the three great academies will definitely be alarmed. Unfortunately, Lin Ling is too strong. We can't keep up with his footsteps. We can only look up to him forever. Yes, but it's not bad to get to know him. In the future, when Lin Ling's name shakes the martial god realm, I'll be able to brag to my friends. Let's go back. At this moment, Lin Ling was walking around the universe. After experiencing the White Fox incident, he cherished the people around him even more. Therefore he was eager to return home. Then Lin Ling walked on the martial god path. When he appeared again, a familiar smell hit him in the face. Lin Ling couldn't help but feel refreshed. However, he wasn't in a hurry to return to the rainforest sacred ground. Instead, he floated in the sky and enjoyed the hard-won tranquility. At this moment, his soul power was quietly increasing. Currently, his strength could be said to be invincible among the second generation. However, the battle with the half-step true god realm expert showed him his weakness. It was his speed. Chapter 25-32. Seeing an old friend again. The third transformation of the evil flame change increases the realm of three realms. It also has resistance against the power of wind, thunder, and water. Most importantly, it can increase the speed of wind and clouds. Lin Ling muttered to himself as he walked along the ground. He casually walked and arrived at the Saint's grand domain. This was another continent of the mortal world in the past. The Death Arrow Martial God. Staring at the prosperous continent, Lin Ling's eyes flashed as he saw an acquaintance. It was Li Xiaoyao's former opponent in the mortal world. However, the Death Arrow Martial God had been crippled by Lin Ling and was living an ordinary life. Of course, as a cultivator he lived by the martial Tao. Even if his cultivation was crippled, he would subconsciously cultivate again. On a remote mountain range in the Saint's grand domain, the sun shone brightly. Three figures bathed in the sunlight as they chatted happily. This was a family. A wife, a husband, and a child. The wife and child were grilling meat while the husband was looking into the distance. enjoying the warmth of the family. "Father, the meat is ready." At this moment the child spoke. In fact, the child was already a teenager. "All right, I'll try your cooking." The man laughed as he strode forward. The sense of accomplishment in his heart grew even stronger. In the past he was Li Xiaoyao's mortal enemy. He wanted to kill Lin Ling but failed in the end. Instead, his cultivation was crippled by Lin Ling. In the following days, he knew that in this ruthless world, it was absolutely impossible to stand without cultivation. Therefore he cultivated again. Although he did not recover his former strength, he had entered the Saint Realm and was an existence that could not be underestimated in the nearby area. This way he could also protect his family. Of course, there were many geniuses in the mortal world. In the past few years, more powerhouses had risen. Many rising stars had reached Wuxia's level and were stronger than him. Therefore he needed to work harder. For this family he would become stronger. Just as he walked towards the teenager, a figure suddenly appeared on the mountain peak and smiled at the man. Lin Ling. The man's eyes narrowed as he instantly recognized the young man. Even the teenager gasped. In the past, Lin Ling came and said that he would kill his father. In the end, he spared his father's life. Therefore he knew that the young man was extremely powerful. Long time no see, Death Arrow Martial God. Surprisingly, the person who had come was Lin Ling. He was just passing by and wanted to see an old friend. The Death Arrow Martial God was Li Xiaoyao's mortal enemy in the past, and he was also Li Xiaoyao's opponent during his growth. But now, not to mention Li Xiaoyao, even Lin Ling didn't treat him as an opponent. Not to mention that the enmity of the past had been dispersed along with the crippling of the Death Arrow Martial God's cultivation. "Don't be so nervous, I'm just here to see you." Noticing the Death Arrow Martial God's serious expression, Lin Ling said with a faint smile. The Death Arrow Martial God was stunned when he heard this, and then he sighed lightly. "If Lin Ling wants to kill me, he really doesn't have to go through so much trouble. Since you're here, let's sit down and eat." The Death Arrow Martial God invited. Lin Ling smiled and sat down. He accepted the wine offered by the Death Arrow Martial God and chatted as though they were friends. The wife and son of the Dead Arrow Martial God were terrified at the beginning. However, when they saw that Lin Ling was an amiable person, they gradually relaxed. "Uncle, you appeared in an instant just now. What kind of martial arts is that? It's so powerful." The youth looked at Lin Ling with admiration. "You don't even think about it. The martial arts that he can cultivate is not something that you can comprehend. Even your father can't." Death Arrow Martial God scolded with a smile. On the other hand, Lin Ling nodded his head. This was because the martial arts he had learned before were the boundary origin martial arts. Without the boundary origin seed, he would not be able to cultivate them. Then how strong is this uncle? The youth also learned martial arts, so he was curious about powerful martial artists. And now, even his father was afraid of this person, so he must be very strong. "His name is Lin Ling, the strongest martial artist in our world." Speaking of this, the Death Arrow Martial God did not hide anything and said calmly. His words were mixed with pride. It was as though he was not as powerful as Lin Ling, but he knew Lin Ling. This was something to be proud of. "Lin Ling? Lin Ling? Could it be that, sir?" The youth was also holding the wine bowl, but at this moment the wine bowl fell to the ground. In this world, there were not many martial artists who had not heard of Lin Ling's name. He was the most terrifying genius in the history of this world. He was also recognized as the strongest martial artist in the three mysteries of the human world, the ghost world, the demon world, and even their continent. He never expected that the handsome uncle that his father knew had such a great background. It's just a false reputation." Seeing the youth's surprised look, Lin Ling smiled helplessly. Then he looked at the Death Arrow Martial God. "You've reached the Saint Realm. Not bad. I'm sorry. Back then you destroyed my cultivation. I should have been an ordinary person, but the demonic beasts here are powerful. In addition, there are many overbearing people here. So, in order to protect this family, I cultivated again." Hearing this, the Death Arrow Martial God immediately smiled bitterly because he had broken his promise. "It's okay. You're just doing what a man should do." Lin Ling did not care about this at all. Then, he pondered for a while and a piece of divine crystal appeared in his right hand. Colorful flames spread out from his palm and burned the divine crystal. Wisps of chaotic spiritual energy wrapped around the Death Arrow Martial God's body like dragons. Seize the opportunity and absorb the spiritual energy into your body. At the same time, Lin Ling said calmly. The Death Arrow Martial God's body trembled. He sensed that the spiritual energy was very ancient and rich. It gave him a feeling that it did not come from this world. At that moment he seized the opportunity and quickly cultivated. After the spiritual energy entered his body, he immediately realized that it was a divine crystal. However, it was even purer than the divine crystals of this world. Under the influence of the mysterious spiritual energy, his cultivation immediately rose crazily and reached the Wuxing realm. Moreover, it did not stop. It rose crazily from the first realm and gradually stepped into the martial emperor realm. Although he still did not recover his former strength, at least he was at the same realm as before. The most terrifying thing was that this was only the effect of a divine crystal in a short period of time. After an unknown period of time, the Death Arrow martial god opened his eyes and looked at Lin Ling in shock. Lin Ling allowed him to recover his strength with a flip of his hand? This was a great favor. No need to thank me. I just wanted to help your family. Lin Ling naturally knew that the other party was surprised. He said with a smile. The Death Arrow martial god did not act pretentiously. He took a deep breath and then bowed heavily. Next he poured out some wine and gave it to Lin Ling with both hands. Now that his strength had increased greatly, even if someone dared to bully him, he would not be afraid. Your cultivation level is rising very quickly because you have reached this level before. Even so, your foundation is still not solid. You should focus on stabilizing your cultivation level during this period of time. Lin Ling said again. Okay. Chapter 25-33. Accepting a disciple. 8th level of the World King Realm. Lin Ling didn't hide it, making the Death Arrow martial god smile bitterly. A long time ago you were still Li Xiaoyao and I was your opponent. At that time, you were the first to leave here and reach the martial god realm. Now, you have reincarnated and are the first to go to the martial god realm. You have reached the realm that I have been pursuing my entire life. It seems that whether it is you or Li Xiaoyao, both of you are opponents that I will never be able to surpass. The World King realm must have given birth to a World King seed. This was the martial arts goal that the Death Arrow martial god had been pursuing for his entire life. Unfortunately, he still failed. He could only look up to Lin Ling. On the path of martial arts, as long as you haven't reached the end, everything is hard to say. Maybe it won't be long before your strength catches up to mine. Alright, let's not talk about this. Let's drink. Lin Ling smiled and waved his hand. His realm seemed to be rising quickly, but sometimes it was in a life-and-death crisis. While he was catching up with his old friend, the rainforest sacred land was bustling with noise and excitement. Because today Lin Yi had returned from his training. Grandpa, I'm back. When a clear voice sounded, the entire rainforest sacred land was shaken. Old ancestor Taiyan Emon Yenshin, and the others all walked out with smiles on their faces. Lin Yi had gone out to train, stepped into the 3 profound of the mortal world, entered the ghost realm, and barged into the devil realm. Young Master Yi, you're back. Lady Shui Wu and the other experts also returned from afar. Then they looked at Lin Ling with doting eyes. This was because they had watched Lin Yi grow up. This little guy had followed in his father's monstrous footsteps and had reached Wu Sheng's realm at such a young age. This training took 3 years and I saw a lot of interesting things. Lin Yi's childish face had already left. His facial features were distinct and he had the outline of Lin Ling. Moreover, his eyes flashed with a decisive light. Over the years he must have faced a lot of storms. Lin Ling had once told him that true martial artists grew up in the midst of wind and rain. Greenhouse flowers looked beautiful, but they couldn't withstand the ravages of wind and rain. Therefore, although his father's name shook heaven and earth, he did not rely on the halo to grow. He concealed his identity, traveled north and south, and defeated countless experts. Wherever his father had gone before, he had always followed him. At this moment, Ancestor Extreme Flame looked at the young lady behind Lin Yi and couldn't help but ask curiously. Her name is Huang Ying, a girl I met during my training. Speaking of the girl behind him, Lin Yi was obviously a little shy. As for the young girl behind her, she was wearing a yellow robe. Her 2 small hands were clasped together and she looked extremely shy. However, she was slender and elegant, youthful and lively. She gave off a very good impression. Come and meet everyone. Lin Yi added. Patriarch Extreme Flame and the others were stunned. They gradually understood what this meant. Had grown up and found his other half. Greetings, seniors. Huang Ying immediately walked out. Although she was shy, she still bowed to everyone gracefully. Patriarch Extreme Flame and the others couldn't help but laugh. Haha, is this brother Lin Ling's daughter-in-law? Not bad at all. Why don't you work harder and let my brother Lin Ling be a grandfather soon? A heroic voice rang out. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile awkwardly and grumble, Uncle Zhantian, how can it be so early? The person who spoke was Gu Zhantian, the former master of Lin Ling's ancient flame devil. Now he was also living in the rainforest sacred ground. In this world, the rainforest sacred ground's atmosphere was the best. No expert dared to cause trouble here because this place belonged to the strongest person in this world, Lin Ling. Hearing the laughter around, the girl called Huang Ying's face turned redder. However, Mon Yenshin, Yumun Yun, Qin Xiaolan and the others immediately went forward and held the girl's hand. After a few words, the girl was no longer as shy as before. It's quite lively here. This is your hometown, the rainforest sacred ground. Just as everyone was rejoicing, an untimely voice suddenly interrupted them. Then immortal clouds floated in the sky, and pure white cranes appeared. The 5 white cranes pulled a palace and arrived in a grandiose manner. At this moment, the sky seemed to be filled with heavenly music, giving people a feeling of prosperity. Countless warriors in the rainforest's sacred ground became solemn. It's him. Lin Yi and Huang Ying's expression changed drastically when they saw who it was. It wasn't the first time they saw the master of the white cranes. A long time ago in the demon region they had come into contact with him. They never expected that the master of the white cranes would follow them here. At this moment, the white cranes in the sky descended from the sky and landed on the ground. Each of them was 5 meters tall. Their white wings were folded, and they had a touch of pride as they looked down at the people on the ground. The palace was opened, and several childlike youths supported an old man as they slowly walked out. The old man was wearing a crane robe. He had white hair and a youthful face. He looked extremely young, but his strength was as elegant as an immortal. He gave people a feeling that he couldn't be underestimated. May I know who you are? Sensing that the other party's background wasn't small, old ancestor Taiyin immediately took a step forward and bowed. His current strength had greatly increased, so he could sense that the old man was extraordinary. Ants like you don't have the qualifications to speak to my sect master. We are from the afterlife realm of the North Territory. We are from the White Crane Immortal sect. We passed by here so we came to take a look. Before the old man could speak, the youths beside him spoke arrogantly. Their words were mixed with arrogance. North Territory? Are they not from this world? Lord Shui Wu, Lord Pu and the others' expressions changed drastically. If they could come from other realms, it meant that these people had boundary seeds. Their strength must have reached the terrifying World King realm. Their world had always been peaceful. Even when there was unrest, it was mostly internal strife. The last time a powerhouse from the outside world had arrived, it had been brought here by the Sun God race. And this time, their world had once again welcomed a powerhouse from the outside world. May I ask why Senior has come here? Old ancestor Taiyin knew that a World King powerhouse was an invincible existence in this world, so he didn't dare to be negligent. There is no need to be so nervous. We powerhouses have no interest in the lives of ants. One of the young men said faintly. His words made everyone feel relieved. We came here because Honorable Master has taken a liking to this junior called Lin Yi and wants to recruit him as a disciple. Another youth said. This was their goal in coming here. Moreover, they had followed Lin Yi in secret for a long time. They knew that Lin Yi's talent was extraordinary, so they wanted to recruit him as a disciple. Recruit him as a disciple? Hearing this, old ancestor Taiyin and the others were stunned. This was the other party's goal? If Lin Ling were to know of this, who knew what Lin Ling would think? Seniors, I have already said that I have no intention of taking you as my master, so I must apologize. Chapter 25-34. Returning home in glory. Lin Yi, if you miss this opportunity then you won't have another one. Immortal White Crane is a 5th-level World King existence, someone you will forever need to look up to. If you miss this opportunity then you will be stuck here for the rest of your life. A young man sneered and said indifferently. Lin Yi didn't know what the World King realm was, thus he had refused. Otherwise, he would have already knelt down to acknowledge this person as his master. As for the World King realm, their White Crane Immortal sect had already traversed through this world and hadn't seen a single World King powerhouse. To this world, a World King powerhouse was undoubtedly a noble and sacred existence. 5th-level World King realm. Old ancestor Extreme Flame and the others' complexions changed. Although Lin Ling and Yu Yu had gone to Martial God World, they still didn't know what their current strength was. As for a 5th-level World King, they were definitely fiercer than an ordinary World King. Our White Crane Immortal sect has opened a market in Martial God World's first ring city. A place like Martial God World isn't something that country bumpkins like you can understand. The youth spoke again. The old man behind him narrowed his eyes. Although he didn't speak, his expression was one of arrogance. Martial God World. Old Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others sucked in a breath of cold air. Our White Crane Immortal sect has a deep background and we know many people in Martial God World. Moreover, that powerhouse is also in the northern lands, searching for some heavenly treasures to refine into pills. In our market, there are often third and last generation disciples of the three great academies that come to buy treasures. Those are true martial god geniuses. The youth said. The truth was that he wanted Lin Yi to know just how noble White Crane Immortal sect was. At this time, the entire rainforest holy land was silent. How about it? Do you still want to acknowledge a master? Finally, the youth held his hands behind his back, quietly waiting for Lin Yi to kneel down and acknowledge him as his master. I'm sorry, but I don't plan on acknowledging a master because my father will teach me martial arts. Just as White Crane Immortal sect thought that Lin Yi would agree, he stubbornly shook his head. What? The several people from White Crane Immortal sect arched their eyebrows. Even the unfathomable old man's eyes widened. At first, Lin Yi refused because he didn't know how powerful they were. But now that they had said it, Lin Yi still refused? This made them feel very uncomfortable. This group of lowly ants simply couldn't see through themselves. Are you sure? The old man finally spoke. I, the White Crane Immortal, have dominated the four realms. You are the first to refuse me. Do you know what this means? I'm sure. However, Lin Yi's answer was quick and straightforward. Who is your father? Call him out. I want to see how he teaches his son. The old man coldly snorted. He never would have thought that taking the initiative to recruit a disciple would result in such treatment. He said indifferently, let me tell you, if your father was here, he would want nothing more than to take me as his master. Just as he finished speaking, an indifferent laugh suddenly came from afar. It is my fortune that this senior thinks so highly of me. However, everyone has their own ambitions and cannot be forced. The voice came out of nowhere and attracted everyone's attention. They saw a young man in a blue and white robe walking over with a smile. He held a wine pot in one hand and had the other hand behind his back. He was indescribably free and easy. His appearance was a little lazy, but he was very handsome, making it hard for people to forget him at first glance. Lin Ling. Looking at the young man, everyone in the rainforest holy land was shocked. Ling. Ancestor Tai Yen and the others were stunned for a moment and their eyes immediately moistened. Lin Ling was back. Although they knew that Lin Ling would definitely return, they were still extremely excited to see him with their own eyes. My lord! Lord Xuewu and the others also shouted in surprise. Moreover, as the sound spread, the entire rainforest's holy land was in an uproar. Countless warriors walked out crazily and looked at Lin Ling excitedly. In this world, Lin Ling's name could be said to be known by every family. That is Lord Lin Ling. This is the first time I've seen him. He looks so powerful. I'm so excited. I've been in the rainforest's holy land for so many years. I didn't expect that I would have the fortune to see Lord Lin Ling. This is the #1 martial artist in the world. The warriors that were running from afar were all extremely excited. Although many people had never seen Lin Ling, the title of the #1 emperor of the mortal world, the #1 genius, had already entered the textbooks of martial artists. He came from the Heaven Mystics Kingdom and the Ancient Face sect. He fought for his self-esteem and for his family's glory. In a short period of time, he ruled the Heaven Mystics Kingdom and then came to the rainforest's holy land. He rose in the 7 profound martial house, defeated countless prodigies and became the #1 genius. When the enemy invaded, it was this #1 genius of all ages who resisted the enemy and protected his home. This mythical story had already spread to every corner. Lin Ling. In a short period of time, the world was filled with shouts of worship. The #1 king of the world, Lin Ling, lived up to his name. Lin Ling drank his wine and looked ahead with a smile. When he saw familiar faces and heard excited voices, he felt an inexplicable excitement in his heart. The years of his childhood also floated in his mind. Looking back, he realized that he had unknowingly walked so many roads and braved so many storms. Today he had returned, and the people of his hometown were warmly welcoming him. This feeling was like returning to his hometown in glory. Everyone, long time no see. Lin Ling took another sip of wine and then waved his hand. This kid. Looking at the young man who had already become a father, Ancestor Extreme Flame's eyes were moist as he scolded with a smile. No matter what kind of emperor Lin Ling was in his eyes, he was still his lovable and talented grandson. Father. Lin Yi also looked at Lin Ling excitedly. Then he strode over to Lin Ling and looked at Lin Ling with admiration. Although he had grown up now, in his heart, his father would always be so powerful and magnificent. Not bad, your strength has increased and you've grown taller. Lin Ling looked at Lin Yi in a doting manner. He could not help but laugh. He was not a good father. He had been fighting outside all year round. His son's education was not just a little bit lacking. Fortunately, Lin Yi was also very capable and did not disappoint Lin Ling. Lin Yi nodded heavily. Who are you? However, at this moment, a dissatisfied voice suddenly sounded, interrupting Lin Ling's family reunion. The person who spoke was Immortal by Crane. He was a little surprised. First, the young man had suddenly arrived and he had not noticed. Second, his Immortal by Crane sect had arrived, and the warriors of this world had reacted indifferently. However, when the young man came, the whole world celebrated. This made him very unhappy. What right did the young man have? Although he could see that the young man was the strongest person in this world, it was obvious that his strength was not enough to enter his eyes. I am Lin Ling. Lin Ling also raised his head and looked at the old man. Father, he wants to take me as a disciple, but I don't want to join their sect. Chapter 25:35. Accepting Lin Ling as a disciple. So you are his father. Good, then have your son enter my sect. Of course, you can also raise conditions. For instance, you can also enter my sect. If I test you and your talent is good, then I can reluctantly agree. The old man regained his indifferent expression. Lin Yi didn't know any better, so having his father agree on his behalf wasn't bad at all. Hearing this, Lin Ling was stunned. He said with disbelief, "You want to accept me as a disciple?" This old man's strength was only at the 5th level of the World King realm. Moreover, his talent hadn't even awakened his divine body. He was clearly an ordinary World King realm martial artist. As for the several youths beside him, although they had also reached the World King realm, they weren't even geniuses of 10,000 worlds. They wanted to accept him as a disciple? Lin Ling couldn't help but laugh. However, seeing Lin Ling smile, the several youths thought that he was happy. They immediately said with disdain, "Don't be happy too early. To enter White Crane Immortal sect, you must pass a test. You might not be able to succeed. Of course, you don't need to feel inferior. Although your talent is inferior, if your perseverance is good, then you still have hope. Let me tell you something else. Our White Crane Immortal sect once gave birth to a monstrous genius. He was a genius of 10,000 worlds and he participated in the examination of the 3 great academies." Another youth proudly said. The old man nodded in satisfaction. This was because that genius of 10,000 worlds was his disciple and also the most glorious of all his disciples. Then, did he enter the 3 great academies? Lin Ling was stunned once more. He subconsciously asked. Nonsense, do you think it's so easy to enter the 3 great academies? You probably don't even know what the 3 great academies are. Let me tell you. If 10,000 worlds wish to enter the 3 great academies, only 3 out of 100 will be able to pass. Even so, having the qualifications to participate in the examination is a form of affirmation. The old man disdainfully smiled. The 3 great academies? Old Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others could faintly hear that these 3 great academies couldn't be underestimated. And their appearance undoubtedly caused the old man to proudly smile. He was already waiting for Lin Ling to kneel down and acknowledge him as his master. Moreover, he was waiting for Lin Ling to look at him with worship. Father, are the 3 great academies very powerful? Even Lin Yi looked at Lin Ling solemnly. What he didn't know was that his father was already the 2nd generation of the 3 great academies, and was even the first of the 2nd generation. I was wondering who it was, but it turned out to be an eliminated genius. Lin Ling was speechless. He really didn't know what to say. Then he joked, "If that's the case, then test me now and see if I'm qualified to enter your sect." So urgent? The people from White Crane Immortal sect were stunned. They were even more certain that Lin Ling was impatient to become a disciple. "Alright, then I'll give you a chance. Be careful, I'm going to use the White Crane Martial Wind to test you. If you can't withstand it, then just shout out loud." One of the young men walked out and looked at the old man. The old man nodded indifferently. "Don't hurt him. Just test him a little. After all, I'm more interested in his son." With his cultivation, he simply couldn't see through Lin Ling's strength. In addition, Lin Ling came from this world, so he thought that Lin Ling was only SOSO. The White Crane Martial Wind's strength comes from a world origin seed. This is the strength of the universe's chaos. It is even fiercer than the laws and can destroy all laws. After the young man walked out, he had the elegant demeanor of a great master. He even swept his eyes over the crowd, wanting to see the awe in their eyes. In fact, Old Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others revealed dignified expressions. This was because they truly didn't understand the strength of a world king. The young man smiled in satisfaction. His arms danced like a white crane, carrying with them the rhythm of a divine crane. It had to be said that with his strength, if placed in the northern lands, he couldn't be underestimated. But in the martial god world, his strength was clearly weak. What left Lin Ling speechless was that this fellow testing him was fine, but he wasn't even attacking. Instead, he was explaining the mysteries of his martial arts. Was he trying to guide him? Or was he trying to show off? The rhythm of the crane, the clouds, the drifting. Those who understand the universe have infinite power. Hearing these words, Lin Ling couldn't help but interrupt him. Senior, please hurry up. Ha, are all young people so impatient? The young man was a bit dissatisfied. He waved his right hand at Lin Ling. Voila. The power of a world origin spread out, causing this world to sway. Ling, be careful. Old Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others immediately broke out in a cold sweat for Lin Ling. Don't worry, my disciple knows what he's doing. He won't harm him. However, the old man was extremely confident. Of course he'll suffer a bit. He'll probably be blown to the ground by the astral winds. The old man had already begun to consider how he would reprimand Lin Ling after Lin Ling failed. After all, if this sort of arrogant junior wasn't suppressed, then his sharp spirit wouldn't be restrained. Voila. The astral winds blew past. No one could stop them. The young man had already turned around and walked towards the old man. Master, his talent is obviously not as good as Lin Yi's. He can't become a disciple of our sect. His voice was filled with confidence. However, just as he finished speaking, a depressed voice came from the surging astral winds. It's over? Not only was the voice depressed, it was also mixed with disappointment. Even old Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others could hear that tone clearly. Hearing that, the young man's eyes narrowed. He turned around and saw Lin Ling standing there unscathed. He was even drinking. Unscathed? How could he be unscathed? Not to mention the young man, even the old man's eyes narrowed. This? The young man was dumbfounded. Senior, why don't you try again? Maybe your martial prowess wasn't stimulated, or maybe you came from afar and didn't eat breakfast so you don't have enough strength. Lin Ling said with a serious face, which made the young man even more dumbfounded. Seeing this unbelievable scene, old Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others were stunned. Although they didn't know what had happened, they couldn't help but laugh. Previously the young man was so arrogant. He treated Lin Ling as if he was looking at an ordinary person. In the end, Lin Ling was safe and sound. How ironic. I'll try again. Hearing the ridicule around him, the young man's face turned red and he walked out again. Voila. This time he obviously used all his strength. But the result was still the same. This made him stand there in a daze. Linny looked at his father in shock. His father was so powerful. He couldn't help but smile. Previously, the young man arrogantly wanted to test his father and then take him as his disciple. Now, the young man seemed to have slapped his own face. The young man used all his strength, but it was useless against his father. How is this possible? How is this possible? The young man kept shaking his head. It was very embarrassing. Young man, you're quite capable. Ling Yuan, come back. I'll test him. Chapter 25-36. Sage Heavenly Deer, you should have given birth to a world origin seed. No wonder, no wonder. But since this old man has taken action, this is your good fortune. Let me see just how strong you are. As the old man attacked, an even greater astral wind swept out, turning into a white crane that flew towards Lin Ling. Honorable Master is mighty. His disciple immediately shouted out in adoration. Although it was the same move, the old man's was clearly much stronger. Your foundations are still unstable. After you return, all of you must train in our sect's basic cultivation methods for 10 years. The old man held his hands behind his back as he reprimanded his disciples. In his opinion, if he were to personally take action, Lin Ling should be in a complete mess right now. Is this the end? However, reality was moving in the opposite direction. Lin Ling still had the same words. Under countless gazes, Lin Ling stood there like a pine tree, like an immovable king. He was fine. He was still fine. Even if the White Crane Immortal Sect Master attacked, Lin Ling would still be fine. At this time the old man's face froze. He couldn't lower his face at all. Before this, he thought that if he were to personally take action, Lin Ling would definitely lose all face. Thus, he reprimanded his disciples. However, the result was that Lin Ling was left speechless. If so, then he would have to train in his sect's basic cultivation methods for 10 years? You have some skill. Come again. The old man's voice turned cold. He raised his strength to the third stage of the World King realm. Voila! Even more horrifying astral winds swept out. But this time the old man didn't dare to speak arrogantly. Instead, he stubbornly stared forwards, wanting to see the result he was waiting for. Is this the end? But the reply was a sentence that made his lungs explode with anger. Linling was still fine. White Crane 100,000 astral winds. The old man's beard blew up and his eyes turned red. This time he actually erupted with his full strength. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The world began to sway, terrifying to the extreme. Lord Linling. Boom. Sensing this earth-shattering scene, everyone cried out in alarm. They couldn't help but feel nervous for Linling. However, Linling was still fine. Senior, please don't destroy my hometown. On the contrary, Linling's helpless voice floated out at the same time. Thud thud thud. The old man retreated as if he had seen a ghost. When all the astral winds disappeared, he pointed at Linling, speechless. Was this guy an iron pillar? What was he doing? He was sure that with the strength he erupted with just now, even a 5th-level World King would have to be cautious. Senior, is the test over? While he was still in shock, Linling's gloomy voice rang out. Assessment? Was this still an assessment? As long as one was not an idiot, they would know that Linling's strength seemed to be even stronger than the sect master of White Crane Immortal sect. The youths from the White Crane Immortal sect were all dumbstruck. They no longer had the arrogance from before. Ironically, with their strength they actually warned Linling? Yes, Father One. It seems that we don't need to be disciples of the White Crane Immortal sect anymore. At this moment, Lin Yi's words were like salt sprinkling on a wound. This sentence undoubtedly caused the old man's body to tremble. Accept a disciple? It was only possible if he became someone else's disciple. Master, what should we do now? The youths from the White Crane Immortal sect bitterly smiled. At this moment they could neither leave nor stay. Good, you've obviously reached the World King realm, but you're deliberately mystifying and playing with us. The old man simply could not swallow this anger. However, his words made Linling sigh in his heart. Was he playing with him? Throughout the entire process, the White Crane Immortal sect was the one speaking. They even said that they wanted to take the test. Now that the test had failed, everything was on Linling's head. If it weren't for them being too weak, Linling really wanted to teach them a lesson. White Crane Immortal, have you accepted a disciple? Can you return now? However, at this time, an indifferent voice came from the sky. Then, a middle-aged man riding a multicolored divine deer descended from the sky. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer. Seeing the middle-aged man, the White Crane Immortal was overjoyed. The other party was a master of the martial god world. The reason why the White Crane Immortal could open a market in the martial god world's first ring city was because of the other party's help. Moreover, the other party was stronger than him, so he had to treat him with respect. What's going on? After the middle-aged man walked down, he immediately frowned. He seemed to have seen that the White Crane Immortal had failed to accept a disciple. A dignified 5th-stage World King powerhouse had also failed to accept a disciple. This was too inconceivable. After all, the North Territory was mostly weak and this territory was one of the weakest. This guy played with me. I want to teach him a lesson. This matter, Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer must stand up for me. With Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer's support, the old man's confidence had increased by a lot. He also knew that if he fought with Linling, he might not be Linling's opponent. However, Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer could definitely suppress Linling. Oh, someone actually ruined your plans. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer frowned as he looked at Linling. Although he didn't have a deep relationship with the White Crane Immortal, they were in a cooperative relationship. The market in the first ring city was opened by the White Crane Immortal sect, and he was the fisherman who reaped the benefits, collecting divine crystals every month. Thus, he couldn't allow the White Crane Immortal to lose face. Boy, do you know what fear is? This is Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer. One of his family members has already become a 3rd-generation student of the Resplendent Academy, and he is ranked 7th. The Resplendent Academy even rewarded him with a market. The White Crane Immortal suddenly laughed. Perhaps because he had lost all face before, he wanted to hold his head high. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer? Linling indifferently looked at the middle-aged man. This man's strength was not bad, he had reached the 9th stage World King realm. Kneel. However, Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer showed no mercy. He wanted Linling to kneel in front of everyone. Hee. Seeing this, Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer was excited. The martial artists of this world worshipped Linling, but what if Linling knelt down and begged for mercy? Then the impression that Lin Ling left on everyone would be greatly reduced. Even Lin Yi would begin to doubt his father. Thus he was looking forward to this scene. You want me to kneel? Lin Ling frowned. Before, he had spoken in a polite tone because Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer had personally recruited his son as a disciple, thus he had given him face. But, who knew that Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer would actually want him to kneel? A mere 9th stage world king, you don't have the qualifications to make me kneel. Lin Ling's voice turned icy cold. Those who knew him knew that if Lin Ling spoke in such a tone, then something must have happened. This was the overbearing aura of a king. Subconsciously, Lady Watermist and the others became excited. They had been waiting for such a tone for a long time. A mere 9th stage world king, I don't know what qualifications you have to be so arrogant. Lin Ling took a step forward and unleashed the speed of a world. Then he threw out a clean punch. How bold. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer didn't think that Lin Ling would attack. Moreover, he didn't use any martial arts and wanted to rely on a single fist to resist him. He, Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer, had a considerable reputation in the northern lands. How could he fear a country boy? Rumble, rumble, rumble. He also thrust out a palm. But, he wanted to directly confront Lin Ling? This was simply seeking death. Deng deng deng. Chapter 2537. Lin Ling? One punch. He was sent flying by a single punch from Lin Ling. Lord Lin Ling, you're amazing. The crowd immediately cried out in surprise and excitement when they saw this scene. They had been waiting for this scene for a long time. A long time ago, the rainforest's sacred land was also invaded by foreign enemies, but the overlord Lin Ling defeated them. And now, history was repeating itself. He was still so domineering and proud. No matter who the enemy was, he only needed one punch. What? White Crane's pupils narrowed. After all, Taoist Heavenly Deer's strength was twice his own, yet he'd been blasted flying with a single punch. You sneak attacked me. Boom. Meanwhile, Taoist Tianlu flew over from afar, and he was furious. Both of his hands immediately moved, displaying a powerful martial art. He didn't believe that a nobody could defeat him. Don't make a move. Wait until I've mastered my martial arts, then you can experience its power. Taoist Heavenly Deer's voice filled the sky, causing the clouds in the sky to drift toward the primal chaos. However, the irony was that he actually asked Lin Ling not to make a move first? Trash, you're already so old. Don't you think it's shameless to say such words? Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others shouted mockingly. Taoist Tianlu actually told Lin Ling not to attack. Such a thick skin, he still has the nerve to call himself a senior? Humph, he was the one who ambushed me. Right now, I'm preparing my martial arts to counterattack. This is a very normal thing. Taoist Celestial Deer roared. A white ball of light appeared between his hands. It grew larger and larger, and within the ball of light, one could see countless deers galloping. His talent was obviously related to deer. If you can't block it, just shout and I'll spare your life. Then he pushed with both hands. Rumble. The white ball of light was like a world as it shot towards the ground. At this moment, the crowd could feel the terrifying pressure. However, their gazes were still fixed on Lin Ling. They were waiting for the most powerful cultivator in the world to shine and not be underestimated by these outsiders. At the same time, Lin Ling also shot into the sky. After all, if the power reached the ground, it would affect the rainforest's sacred land. Rumble. He took a step into the sky and was immediately entangled by the enormous power. It was as if a blazing sun had appeared in the sky. You overestimate yourself. Taoist Heavenly Deer mocked after seeing this scene, thinking that even if Lin Ling didn't die, he would still be injured. Boom. However, at this moment, a rumbling sound rang out. Under countless gazes, the blazing sun was forcefully blown apart, and a figure in a blue and white robe walked out from within. Is this all you've got? The entire sky could hear Lin Ling's tyrannical voice. Is that all you've got? His voice was filled with contempt, sarcasm, and disdain. At this moment, the hearts of Lin Yi and the others were thumping wildly. They were so excited that they smiled silently. So what if Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer was preparing his martial arts? Lin Ling had also easily broken through. As for Immortal White Crane and Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer, their expressions were smug at first, but they gradually turned to surprise, then shock, and finally horror. This was because if Lin Ling had forcefully counterattacked and broken through Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer's attack, then Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer wouldn't have been surprised. But Lin Ling had used his body to forcefully resist. Forcefully withstanding the attack of a 9th-level world king, just who could accomplish this? Divine light protecting your body? You have an awakened divine body. Then, Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer finally saw just how terrifying Lin Ling was. You think I need to sneak attack you? At this time Lin Ling's complexion was icy cold. He stepped forwards and punched out once more. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A formidable strength surged forth, blotting out the skies. This fist caused Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer to vomit blood once more as he crashed into the ground. I told you to prepare your martial arts and yet you used such trash moves? Lin Ling shot down like a meteor, stomping down on Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer who had just crawled back up. You dare to injure me? I am from the Tian family. My Tian family has a genius that is a third-generation disciple of Radiant Academy. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer finally realized just how terrifying Lin Ling was. But he still didn't fear Lin Ling because he was from the Tian family. Although this family wasn't famous in martial god world, it was like a royal family in the northern lands. Even if you are from the Tian family, you will still kneel before me today. Unfortunately Lin Ling didn't care at all. You, who are you? Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer roared. He wasn't an idiot. If this youth was so strong and he didn't fear him even though he was from the Tian family, could his background be great? Lin Ling. Lin Ling lifted his foot from Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer's body, looking down at him. Lin Ling. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer was stunned. He recalled this name and then cried out in alarm, could you be the #1 monstrous genius of Radiant Academy, the #1 rookie of the second generation? His family had a third-generation 7th existence, and every time that genius returned home, he would say that there were even more powerful geniuses in Radiant Academy, and one of those geniuses was Lin Ling. In fact, that genius even participated in the battle at the Great Azure Divine Dynasty's drill ground, and personally witnessed Lin Ling dominating the drill ground. Most importantly, the marketplace that he and Immortal White Crane had opened together was not far from the Rainforest Marketplace. He remembered that when they opened, he had personally inquired about the Rainforest Marketplace in an attempt to curry favor with them and ask for a favor. Ironically, the shopkeeper of the Rainforest Market was right in front of him. Lin Ling, please be magnanimous and spare my life. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer hurriedly got up and kowtowed. This scene stunned Patriarch Extreme Flame and the others on the spot. Even the people from Immortal White Crane sect looked like their parents had died, and their faces were filled with confusion. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer lost, and that was fine, but he actually took the initiative to kneel and beg for mercy? It wasn't hard to make a martial artist admit defeat, but to make a martial artist kneel and beg for mercy, that wasn't easy at all. Lin Ling stomped on Reverend Heavenly Deer's shoulder, forcing him to the ground. You're so arrogant, coming to my territory and asking me to kneel without asking for a reason. If it weren't for the fact that I'm not Lin Ling, I'm afraid you'd teach me a lesson today. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer's face was already on the ground, but he didn't dare to be arrogant and begged for mercy. Make those people from Immortal White Crane sect kneel as well. Lin Ling continued. Previously, he had spoken nicely, but now, his patience had been exhausted by them. Immortal White Crane was still confused, but they weren't fools. They could see that this Lin Ling wasn't simple. Are you kneeling or not? Lin Ling said indifferently. Kneel, kneel, kneel immediately. Immortal White Crane and the rest didn't dare to delay, and hurriedly knelt. Their hearts were bitter, they never thought that recruiting a disciple would end up in such a situation. Their face was thrown into the chaos of the universe. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer was still being stepped on by Lin Ling, but he looked at Immortal White Crane with resentment. This guy wanted to take Lin Ling's son as a disciple, he was really seeking death. Chapter 2538. The Pride of the Rainforest's Sacred Land. Hand over all your treasures. I have a lot of divine crystals on me. Hearing this, Immortal White Crane let out a cry of horror. As the leader of a sect and the owner of the market, he naturally had all his wealth on him. So, you choose the first option. Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. Lin Ling nodded. Immortal White Crane, you're fucking courting death. Taoist Master Heavenly Deer immediately cursed. He was furious. This whole thing was caused by this Immortal White Crane. Even after kicking an iron plate, he still doesn't know his mistake. He's simply courting death. Most importantly, he's implicated me. Immortal White Crane, how could I be so blind to cooperate with you to open a market? Once Lin Ling is angry, I'm afraid the entire Tian family will be buried with him. Immortal White Crane immediately realized the horror of the situation. He quickly kowtowed and said, yes, I'll give it to you immediately. Yes. Do you still want to take my son as your disciple? Yes. Lin Ling lightly nodded and looked at Immortal White Crane. I wouldn't dare. Immortal White Crane suddenly smiled bitterly. He didn't even have the courage to look at Lin Yi now because it was too embarrassing. Well, now get out of this world. If you step into this world again in your lifetime, I'll kill your whole family. You'd better tell everyone you know that whoever dares to behave atrociously in my territory will be killed no matter how far away they are. Lin Ling nodded again, but his voice became cold. This world was his hometown, his reverse scale. No one could invade here. If anyone dared to behave atrociously here, kill. Looking at Lin Ling's domineering appearance, Ancestor Tai Yin and the others all laughed. This was the #1 sovereign in their world. Domineering and imposing enough. This world was peaceful because of his domineering attitude. I'll never come here again. Spiritual Master Heavenly Deer and Immortal White Crane didn't need Lin Ling's reminder. Even if they were invited, they wouldn't dare to come. Then they climbed up in a sorry state, led their disciples Immortal White Crane and Deer, and wanted to escape from this place. However, they had only taken a few steps when Lin Ling's cold voice came, Immortal White Crane. Stop. Immortal White Crane and Immortal White Crane were frightened by this young man. I wasted so much saliva earlier, so you should at least give me some compensation. Leave these white cranes and divine deer behind, so that my family and friends can have a taste of the divine beasts of chaos. Lin Ling said Immortal White Crane and Immortal White Crane and Immortal White Crane. Immortal White Crane? Immortal White Crane, Immortal White Crane and Immortal White Crane. One of them was called the Heavenly Deer, and the other was called the White Crane. It was precisely because their mounts were the divine deer and the white crane that they were going to be slaughtered now. Immortal White Crane, seeing their dumbfounded expressions, Lin Ling frowned. Immortal, the two of them smiled bitterly. They abandoned the divine deer and the red-crowned crane and fled in panic. Immortal White Immortal, Immortal White Immortal, Immortal White Crane, Immortals Immortal. Immortal White Crane. Immortal. However, after a short moment of silence, the crowd erupted into cheers. Everyone stared at the proud young man. Many people were excited and some older cultivators even had tears in their eyes. It was because of Lin Ling that they had such a stable home. Ling, you stinking brat, you've made your grandfather worry for nothing. In the distance, Ancestor Extreme Flame couldn't help but laugh and curse as he strode over. Facing his grandfather, Lin Ling was still like a child. He rubbed the back of his head and smiled excitedly. Father, you're amazing. I've said it before. If I want a master, my father is the best one. Lin Ling was obviously more excited than anyone else. Beside him, Huang Ying looked at Lin Ling in horror. She didn't expect Lin Yi's father to be so powerful. Not only did the enemy's invasion fail, they even plundered all of their assets. How bold, how bold. This is a true martial artist of my generation. Alright, today we will kill the divine deer and the immortal crane. At this time, Lin Ling was speaking with familiar faces. Then he looked at everyone, causing their spirits to rise even higher. Moreover, the divine crystals he had extorted from White Crane Immortal Sect could be left to his grandfather and the others so that they could increase their strength. Ling, what is your current strength? Ancestor Extreme Flame couldn't help but ask. As his voice fell, all other voices died away. Everyone was filled with anticipation. 8th level of the World King Realm. Lin Ling didn't hide this. This caused Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others to smile with pride. Although they didn't know what the 8th level of the World King Realm was, it was clearly far more fierce than White Crane Immortal Sect's 5th level of the World King Realm. Moreover, within the World King Realm, I am invincible. However, Lin Ling's next words left everyone shocked. Invincible. These two words were clearly easier to understand. Lin Ling was invincible within the entire Great Boundary. Good. Ancestor Extreme Flame's old face lit up with excitement. He knew that the Northern Lands had countless worlds. Their world was very ordinary in the Northern Lands. However, Lin Ling, who was born in this world, had arrived at Martial God World and bloomed with a dazzling radiance. Not only was Ancestor Extreme Flame proud, but even Lady Water Mist and everyone else in the mortal world were proud. This was because Lin Ling represented them. That night, the Rainforest Holy Land was bustling with activity. Moreover, people from the mortal worlds 3 Mystic, Ghost World, Demon World, and Divine World all arrived one after another. It could be said that Lin Ling had returned alone. The world was in turmoil. Many familiar faces came to visit Lin Ling. For instance, the Demon World's Great Demon King of the East, the Divine World's Immortal Divine Kingdom, and so forth. It could only be said that Lin Ling's growth had left behind far too many footprints in this world. The ghost world, divine world, demon world, myriad saint region, all of them had his shadow. That night, Lin Ling accompanied his friends and chatted with them about what had happened in martial god world. Although he described it simply, many people still felt that it was shocking. You will be fine. When they heard that Yuer had gone missing, Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others were very worried. She will be fine. As long as I find the location of the Immortal Temple, I will personally go and find her. No matter where she is, I will not stop looking for her. Speaking of Yuer, Lin Ling thought of the White Fox. He firmly believed that Yuer must be waiting for him somewhere in Huanyu just like the White Fox. Alright, we believe in you. Lin Ling's mother Mo Nianchen looked at Lin Ling with gratification. Yumun Yun, Qin Xiaolan, and the others held Lin Ling's hand and cherished this hard-won time. Lin Ling felt extremely guilty towards them and immediately smiled at them. Only when night fell did everyone leave. Lin Ling held Yu Mingyun and Yu Mingyun's hands and entered the room together. After a busy period, he hugged his two beautiful wives' alluring figures and chatted merrily with them. After the incident with the White Fox, Lin Ling cherished the women around him even more. These beautiful wives waited for Lin Ling without any complaints and silently contributed. Lin Ling had such confidence in his life. What regrets did he have? Lin Ling, we don't blame you. We know that you still have a lot of things to do. We can wait. When you rule the world in the chaos of Huanyu, we will accompany you to travel the world. Yumun Yun looked at her man and said, Alright, I promise you. Chapter 25-39. Seeing Lu Susu again, Lin Ling, big sister Susu has already left. I don't know where she went. Qin Xiaolan leaned against Lin Ling's arm. The big sister Susu she was talking about was Lu Susu. Lu Susu had helped Lin Ling many times in the past. Anyone could see that she liked Lin Ling. However, after Lin Ling broke through, he immediately entered the martial god realm and did not give her any promise or reply. This made her heart die. She could not compare to Yumun Yun and the others because Yumun Yun and the others were Lin Ling's wives and had status, while she was nothing. Therefore, as long as she was a woman with dignity, she would not dare to force herself to stay here. She has waited for you for a long time. Yumun Yun also said, we don't mind her fighting for you. The most important thing is that she has indeed done a lot for you. Hearing this, Lin Ling thought of that intelligent and charming woman, and he could not help but sigh softly. In reality, how could he not know about Lu Susu's feelings? However, at that time, he had started to restrain himself, so he had not replied to Lu Susu. After the incident with the White Fox, he knew that some things would still be broken. She has already left. Perhaps she has also gotten over it. Lin Ling said indifferently. No, she might have left to look for you. Yumun Yun said in Lin Ling's ear, causing Lin Ling to let out a long sigh. His gaze seemed to pass through a world, searching for Lu Susu in the three profound realms of the human realm. Tomorrow I will look for her. After a while, Lin Ling muttered to himself. It was already late at night. Lin Ling watched his two beautiful wives fall asleep, and he also slowly began to cultivate. Over the years he had already formed a habit. As long as he was free, he would seize the time to cultivate. And the goal of this cultivation was to cultivate the evil god transformation. However, even though Lin Ling was very familiar with this fire-type cultivation technique, when he wanted to cultivate to the third stage, an invisible door blocked Lin Ling. The level of the awakened godly body is too low. Lin Ling instantly knew the reason and could not help but feel depressed. It seemed that before the awakened godly body leveled up, the evil flame transformation would be very difficult to improve. Early in the morning of the second day, Lin Ling left. He had the speed of a world which allowed him to travel through this world quickly. At this moment, in the former divine realm, a slender figure was striding forward. She wore a purple robe and her face was covered with a veil. Every move she made was filled with the charm of a woman. Wherever she went, many martial artists would secretly lick their lips. However, they could not wait. They was still very much looking was a woman's beauty was a 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 beauty? Unfortunately, the woman's pace was not fast, but with a mysterious rhythm, she quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. Susu, your cultivation has already reached the peak of the martial emperor realm. Perhaps you can find a way to create a boundary origin seed, but you've already walked for a long time. How about I take you on the path of a martial god? When the woman appeared on a mountain peak, a young man wearing neat armor appeared there with a smile, looking at the woman with longing in his eyes. This woman was someone he met by chance when he was passing by the North Territory. At that time he was attracted by her beauty. This woman was intelligent, charming, and elegant, and he wanted nothing more than to hold her hand and grow old together. However, this woman seemed easy to talk to, but when he wanted to take the next step, this woman rejected him. And when he wanted to move her with sincerity, he realized that this woman already had someone in her heart. This was the reason why this woman rejected him. He thought that after time, everything would be diluted, but he realized that it was very difficult. At that moment he was very jealous of that man, and he was not willing to accept it. He was a genius from the martial god realm, how could he not be compared to that man? Jianghu, you should leave. The woman looked into the distance and said indifferently. I won't leave. I believe that one day you will understand my heart. The young man called Jianghu said sincerely. However, the woman sighed and shook her head. So what if she understood? Her heart had long belonged to that man. Long time no see, female profiteer. However, at that moment, a laugh suddenly sounded, causing the woman to tremble. It was a very familiar voice. She could not help but turn her head, and she saw that a handsome young man had appeared on the mountain peak. He carried an ancient sword on his back and he was wearing a blue and white robe. There was a faint smile on his handsome face, and he was as carefree and confident as before. Lin Ling. Lu Susu cried out in surprise, and her heart started to beat violently. She thought that she would never see this young man again in her life, and she thought that she would forget about him. However, when everything appeared in front of her eyes, she still couldn't control her emotions. Bits and pieces of the past came rushing back like the tide. How have you been? Lin Ling sighed inwardly as he looked at Lu Susu's beautiful face. His gaze fell on the man beside Lu Susu and he suddenly had a guess. Man. Perhaps, Lu Susu had already found her other half. Lin Ling felt that it was a pity, but he did not think much of it. After all, feelings could not be forced. Lu Susu had waited for Lin Ling for so long, and he, Lin Ling, had not made any promises because he was busy. Therefore Lin Ling had no right to care so much. I'm fine. Lu Susu looked at Lin Ling and replied with a smile. For a moment, the two of them were silent. They both had their own thoughts. Jianghu's expression became uglier and uglier. Just as Lin Ling was about to leave, he stepped forward and said, "You are the man that Susu has been thinking about day and night? Kneel down." At this moment, Jianghu was furious. He had finally seen the man in Lu Susu's heart. He was jealous and he was even more indignant. Therefore he instantly attacked Lin Ling. Jianghu, no. When Lu Susu saw Jianghu attack, she could not help but cry out anxiously. Jianghu came from the martial god realm. It was said that he was a genius from a certain school. If he attacked, how could Lin Ling stop him? However, it would have been better if she did not shout. The more she shouted, the angrier Jianghu became. At this moment Lin Ling was stunned. He had thought that Lu Susu already had her other half, but that man had said that he, Lin Ling, was the man that Lu Susu had been thinking about day and night. This meant that Lu Susu still had not let go of him. If Lu Susu no longer had him in her heart, then Lin Ling would definitely leave. However, Lu Susu still cared about him. How could Lin Ling let her down? At this moment Lin Ling smiled. He did not even look at Jianghu and walked forward step by step. Bang! At the same time, Jianghu's attack landed on Lin Ling's body. However, a powerful aura rebounded and domineeringly sent Jianghu flying. He smashed into the ground and spat out blood. His face was full of shock. After all, he was the second generation of Heavenly Saint Academy. How could he not injure an unfamiliar young man? Chapter 2540. Return to Qingzhou. Who exactly are you? Jianghu roared. Suddenly he muttered to himself, Lin Ling, the man that Lu Susu likes, is called Lin Ling. Could he be the second-generation prodigy of the resplendent academy, Lin Ling? His heart was pounding. He had heard of the name Lin Ling before, but he did not expect him to be the same person as the man in Lu Susu's heart. At this moment, his heart was dead. If the man in Lu Susu's heart was trash, then he must get Lu Susu. However, that man was Lin Ling. The rising prodigy of the three academies, Lin Ling. He could not compare. He watched as Lin Ling walked toward Lu Susu. He finally got up, sighed and turned to leave. At this moment he had completely given up on Lu Susu. He knew that he would never be able to get Lu Susu. Jianghu. Lu Susu could not help but shout as she watched Jianghu leave. Although she did not like Jianghu, she was still grateful that he had been secretly protecting her. Susu, if he is the man in your heart, I can't compare. Jianghu's face dimmed, then he sighed and disappeared into the sky. Lu Susu looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. She did not expect Jianghu to know Lin Ling and be so afraid of Lin Ling. What kind of terrifying thing had Lin Ling done in the martial god realm? At this moment Lin Ling did not care about Jianghu at all. He smiled at Lu Susu and said, "Female profiteer, I'm sorry to have made you wait for so long. If possible, I hope you can be my woman." This time Lin Ling did not beat around the bush. Instead he asked openly. He and Lu Susu had known each other for so long, so it was better to go straight to the point. However, his words were sincere. Lu Susu's body trembled when she heard this. Her long eyelashes twitched as she looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. In fact, she had been waiting for this sentence for a long time. She liked Lin Ling. Moreover, she felt that Lin Ling also had a good impression of her, but Lin Ling had never confirmed their relationship. This put her in a dilemma. After all, no matter what, she was still a woman with dignity. It was impossible for her to send herself to him. And now Lin Ling finally spoke. That sentence made her feel that everything was worth it. I agree. Lu Susu hurriedly took a step forward and looked at Lin Ling with a blushing face. In the past, she had been the hall master of the Heavenly Palace and had long been accustomed to grand scenes. However, at this moment, her heart was pounding wildly. She was indeed a complete blank when it came to relationships between men and women. Lin Ling took the initiative this time. He took a step forward and hugged Lu Susu. Feeling the warmth of Lu Susu's body, he relaxed as if he had solved a knot in his heart. After the incident with the white fox, he knew that he had to give an explanation to all the women. Now that Lu Susu's problem was solved, he had nothing to worry about anymore. The only one left was Immortal. You have reached the peak of the martial emperor realm. It seems that you have been working hard during this period. Hugging Lu Susu and feeling her voluptuous body, Lin Ling could not help but feel restless. He quickly spoke. Yes, because I also want to go to the martial god realm. Lu Susu's face was flushed red. At this moment, she lifted her head and looked at Lin Ling as she spoke. Alright, I will give you the path to the martial god realm to comprehend the boundary seed. What do you think? Great, if I can produce the boundary seed, won't I be able to go to the martial god realm like Princess Huoling? Of course. While Lu Susu was pleasantly surprised, Lin Ling waved his right hand. Immediately, there was a roar and the path to the martial god realm appeared in the sky. It was mysterious and ancient. You are so powerful. Lu Susu did not expect Lin Ling to open the path to the martial god realm with a wave of his hand. This filled her with admiration. Her man did not disappoint her. Go, find your own path to the martial god realm. I will wait for you in the martial god realm's Qing prefecture. Lin Ling patted Lu Susu's perky buttocks and said with a smile. Bad guy. Yes. Lu Susu rolled her eyes at Lin Ling and walked towards the path to the martial god realm. When she was about to enter, she looked at Lin Ling reluctantly and said, Lin Ling, are you going to wait for me? Yes. I will wait for you. Even if the world ends, I will wait for you to come back. Yes. Lin Ling thought of White Fox and immediately promised that he would not let the woman beside him wait for him for endless years. Absolutely not. If anyone dared to stop him, he would kill them all. Yes, I believe in you. Yes. Lu Susu's eyes also became moist. She knew that Lin Ling rarely made promises, but he was a man of his word. If he said he would definitely do it. At this moment, her uneasy heart also calmed down. Like duckweed in the sea, she found a stable harbor. And that harbor was Lin Ling. Looking at Lu Susu, who was almost moved to tears, Lin Ling felt even more guilty. He quickly took out a ring and threw it to Lu Susu. There was a large amount of divine crystals in the ring, enough for Lu Susu to use for her cultivation. I know you are greedy. Are these divine crystals enough? You are the greedy one. Wow, so many divine crystals. Are these betrothal gifts? Alright then, I'll marry you. Lu Susu put the ring on her jade finger and finally walked on the path to the martial god realm. Looking at the disappearing figure, Lin Ling could not help but smile warmly. Then he thought of Lu Qin of the Creator Alliance. That lord was very powerful and was also someone who could destroy the world for his lover. That was a true warrior of my generation. If Lin Ling's strength was monstrous, then he would also protect everything domineeringly. Then Lin Ling disappeared and appeared in the rainforest sacred land. He left behind a large amount of cultivation techniques and divine crystals. After giving Lin Yi and the others some guidance, he left the rainforest sacred land. Now it was time for him to return to Qing province. Moreover, Lin Ling's strength had increased greatly. He was now strong enough to dominate the second generation. His goal was to become one of the first generation. For example, the 9 heavens of Qing province. Qing province was still bustling with noise and excitement. During this period of time, all kinds of geniuses had risen in the three great academies like bamboo shoots after a rain. Other than being surprised by the strength of those geniuses, people were not surprised by the sudden emergence of geniuses in the three great academies. Because every genius that appeared in the three great academies was an existence that could create miracles. Qing province was also the birthplace of miracles. When Lin Ling appeared in the rainforest market, Gong Yangjiang and the others were delighted. Yu Shen Yuange and the others were also there. They all cried out in surprise as they looked at Lin Ling. Not bad. Yu has already reached the peak of the World King realm and Ger has reached the 7th stage of the World King realm. Very good. Lin Ling swept his eyes over everyone and nodded with satisfaction. Besides Yu and the others, falling flowers and flowing water sword strength had also greatly increased. Lord Lin Ling, you've returned. As for Tang Yue, as soon as she learned that Lin Ling had returned, she immediately rushed over. Seeing this, Lin Ling also greeted Tang Yue. My lord, you've broken through 2 levels. I wonder just how strong you are? The chess boy curiously asked as he looked at Lin Ling. Every time Lin Ling left, his boundary would rise by a great deal after he returned. This caused the chess boy to worship him greatly. My strength is just SOSO. Chapter 2541. Zhuang Bifan, however, she didn't say it out loud. After all, the 4 commanderies had been investigating what had happened in the 9-dragon realm. Except for the square commandery, no one knew that those cultivators had died because of Lin Ling. Therefore, some things were better kept hidden unless Lin Ling wanted to say it himself. In fact, Lin Ling didn't plan on hiding anything. The fact that he was able to dominate the 2nd generation would be known by everyone sooner or later. After all, he had too many enemies. Other than those in the heavenly court, there were also the Marquis of Sovereign Justice, Tating Commandery and other powerful forces. Once the enemy came knocking on his door, it would be impossible for Lin Ling to hide his strength. Let's go back to Resplendent Academy, Lin Ling said. It had been a long time since he had returned to the Resplendent Academy. In addition, his demonic flame transformation was currently stuck at a bottleneck. Therefore, he wanted to go to the Resplendent Academy to see if it would be of any help. All right. Everyone nodded in agreement. The Resplendent Academy was still bustling with noise as geniuses were born one after another, shocking the entire academy. After Lin Ling and the others arrived, the gazes of the geniuses along the way swept over. After all, there were as many geniuses as there were clouds here, but no one was like Lin Ling and the rest, entering the academy so casually. The hunter shoots the bird that sticks out. This principle was applicable everywhere. Moreover, geniuses were proud and arrogant. The more they saw an opponent with a sharp spirit, the more they wanted to suppress them. Perhaps this would give them a sense of accomplishment. Who are those people? The falling flowers flowing water sword, one of the strongest among the 3 generations, and DBMO. That beautiful girl is the scariest. Her name is Yu. She's an existence that cannot be underestimated among the new talents of the 2nd generation. Yu? Could the handsome young man beside her be Lin Ling? Many geniuses cried out in surprise. Lin Ling's name was known by quite a few people in the Resplendent Academy. It was said that he had the fastest cultivation speed in history, going from the last generation to the 2nd generation in just 10 years. Isn't he dead? Where did you hear this rumor? He just hasn't come to Resplendent Academy for a long time. It said that he defeated Senior Sister Si Xuanmei and made Senior Dandelion, Senior Ancestor Dragon Granny, and even the Vice Dean think highly of him. It looks like he's very ordinary. He's just an 8th level realm king. Many people secretly said. Some doubted Lin Ling's strength and some worshipped Lin Ling. Among the 3 generations, several figures also appeared under a large tree. At this moment, they were clearly extremely dim and could only look up at the distant figures. They were none other than Sword Tyrant, Young Master Long Lin, and the others from the Dandelion Palace. These people were all top existences in the 3rd generation. But facing Lin Ling, they didn't even have the qualifications to raise their heads and look up. His strength has increased again. I'm afraid he's above average among the 2nd generation. That's not necessarily true. He has become a rising star of the 2nd generation. It can only be said that he can't be underestimated among the 2nd generation. However, there are many 2nd generation geniuses, and there are many who are stronger than him. That's right. He's showing off his ability but doesn't know how to restrain himself. He'll definitely suffer. Sword Tyrant and the others coldly snorted. They dared to be arrogant among the 3rd generation, but in the entire Resplendent Academy, they didn't have the qualifications to raise their heads and speak. Their strength was inferior to Lin Ling's, so they hoped that others would suppress Lin Ling's spirit. I didn't expect your reputation to rise so quickly after the battle on the drill ground. At this moment, Queen Xianxi's voice resounded in Lin Ling's mind. She had returned to the rainforest sacred ground with Lin Ling and witnessed everything that Lin Ling had sacrificed for his homeland. This had changed her view of Lin Ling, especially when she saw Lin Ling personally go to Lu Susu. At that time she was somewhat envious of Lu Susu. After all, to Lin Ling, although Lu Susu was beautiful and charming, she was actually very ordinary. In fact, if Lin Ling was weak, there would be more powerful girls pursuing Lin Ling in the Resplendent Academy. However, Lin Ling didn't forget the old. He took the initiative to go to Lu Susu and confess his feelings. Such a loyal and affectionate man was the dream partner of every girl. Compared to the Sovereign Marquis, my reputation is nothing. Lin Ling smiled casually, which made Queen Xianxi fall silent. Lin Ling was indeed famous in the Resplendent Academy. However, compared to the ancient martial artists of the Great Azure Dynasty, Lin Ling was still too young. When the Sovereign Marquis was mentioned, Queen Xianxi's murderous intent rose to the sky. This made Lin Ling feel that the hatred between Queen Xianxi and the Sovereign Marquis was not small. Senior Lin Ling, right? I'm a rising star of the second generation. I'm here to learn from you. At this moment, a smile was heard. Although it was said that the hunter would shoot the bird that stood out, there were always people who didn't believe in heresy, especially the rising stars of the second generation. They preferred to challenge the difficulties. Therefore, someone stepped forward. Seeing this, the crowd was shocked. Someone dared to challenge Lin Ling at this moment? Zhuang Baifan. However, when the crowd's eyes fell on the young man, they felt that everything was normal. It's him. Xian Yuan-Ge murmured beside Lin Ling. Then she immediately explained, Lin Ling, 1 year after you became a rising star of the second generation, there was a battle between the third generation and the second generation in the Resplendent Academy. The young man who won first place is also a rising star of the second generation. The difference is that you are a rising star of the second generation in the 3 academies, while Zhuang Baifan is a rising star of the second generation in the Resplendent Academy. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded in understanding. But he was also a bit depressed. They were both rising stars of the second generation, so what was the point of challenging each other? Zhuang Baifan challenged Lin Ling. Both of them are rising stars of the second generation. But Lin Ling's talent is clearly higher. Zhuang Baifan shouldn't be his match. That's not necessarily true. Geniuses like to do things that exceed the norm. For instance, Lin Ling defeated Si Xuanmei and won with his status as a junior. Why can't Zhuang Baifan do the same? That's true. The crowd began to discuss. At this moment, they didn't think that Zhuang Baifan was overestimating himself. I, Zhuang Baifan, am at the 10th stage of the World King realm. I have a 2nd grade awakened divine body and I also have a high 3rd grade martial skill. I would like to ask senior apprentice brother Lin Ling for guidance. The youth walked forward step by step, playing with 2 steel beads in his hands. His expression was extremely calm. He had already heard of Lin Ling's great name, but seeing him today left him a bit disappointed. After all, Lin Ling was only at the 8th stage of the World King realm. Although Lin Ling had the ability to jump realms to fight, so did he. I'm sorry, I'm not free. However, Lin Ling shook his head and led the crowd forward once more. You don't dare? Hearing this, Zhuang Baifan was stunned. He didn't think this would be the result. Senior apprentice brother Lin Ling, you are currently ranked 42nd out of the 70,000 second generation juniors of the Resplendent Academy. As for me, I am ranked 56th. Sooner or later I will surpass you. Moreover, you can rest assured that in the Resplendent Academy you won't die. If this were outside you would have been killed by me. So, this is a battle that should come. Yes. Chapter 2542. A 2nd grade awakened godly body. The Resplendent Academy had 70,000 second generation students, and Lin Ling was ranked 42nd. This was also the reason why Lin Ling's name could shake the Resplendent Academy. Being ranked 42nd out of 70,000 wasn't a simple matter. Zhuang Baifan, right? Although I admit that you have some skills, it's better to keep a low profile. Otherwise you'll only embarrass yourself. Sigh. At this moment, Lin Ling stopped in his tracks and frowned as he looked at his opponent. Zhuang Baifan actually said that he would have to face this battle sooner or later. Lin Ling wouldn't die in this battle, but in the future battle outside Resplendent Academy, Lin Ling might die. This was a threat. A rising star dared to threaten Lin Ling? Of course, Lin Ling had to admit that Zhuang Baifan did have some skills. At the very least, his strength wasn't much weaker than Yu Yu's. In terms of cultivation time, Zhuang Baifan's cultivation time was shorter than Yu Yu's. In this aspect he was much more powerful than Yu. It seemed that there were many geniuses in Qing province and Lin Ling wasn't the only one who could create miracles. Haha, low profile? Senior brother Lin Ling, we must have heard wrongly. The rise of a genius must surpass countless seniors. How can a low profile achieve all this? Hearing Lin Ling's words, Zhuang Baifan couldn't help but laugh sarcastically. His words made many people nod. Resplendent Academy was a place to nurture martial gods. Who would keep a low profile here? If one had the strength, who wouldn't keep a high profile? Only by keeping a high profile would one be valued by the Academy. Moreover, being high profile was a kind of aura, an aura of bravery. Hearing this, Lin Ling shook his head. His so-called low profile wasn't low profile towards himself, but towards his opponent. Because if his opponent could make a name for himself, then he must have some ability. Unless he had absolute confidence, it was better to treat him seriously. Lin Ling was obviously more mysterious and famous than Zhuang Baifan. The latter should keep a low profile. Humph, the so-called low profile is actually a coward who is afraid of trouble. At that moment, a voice came from behind Zhuang Baifan. Lin Ling looked over and saw a familiar face. Ho Xiaoyan. Especially Xian Yuan, she was even more familiar with that person. It was because in the past, when she became the last generation, Ho Xiaoyan also became the last generation. Moreover, because of jealousy she had a conflict with her. Later on, Lin Ling came and ruthlessly humiliated her. And now she had stood out to speak. It was obvious that she had a close relationship with Zhuang Baifan. At this moment, Ho Xiaoyan also saw Xian Yuan. Her eyes were filled with pride. Finally, she looked at Lin Ling and said, "This Lin Ling can't even protect his own woman. If he isn't a coward, then what is he?" There was a hidden meaning behind her words. Is she talking about Immortal? Hearing this, many people immediately guessed. In the previous battle at the drill ground, Lin Ling fought for Immortal, so they knew about this matter. His woman is dead, but he doesn't even dare to kill Si Xuanmei. Poor Immortal, she actually entrusted herself to such a person. I'm afraid her bones are not even cold yet. Ho Xiaoyan laughed again. Her words were vicious. Is he still a man? Xiaoyan, if someone bullies you like this, I will kill my way to the 9 heavens. Zhuang Baifan immediately replied. His words were filled with boundless arrogance, as if he was saying that Lin Ling was a coward. At this moment, Xian Yuan and the others were furious. Sister Yu was not dead yet, but they actually said that Sister Yu was dead. How despicable. You want to fight, right? I'll accompany you. Yu's eyes were wet. She gritted her teeth and walked forward step by step. However, just as she moved, a cold voice came from beside her. Let me. Lin Ling had already walked forward. Compared to Yu and Xian Yuan's anger, Lin Ling's anger was boiling. He did not want to fight before because it was meaningless. Everyone's strength was about the same. If he wanted to fight, he would challenge someone stronger. Who knew that Zhuang Baifan would be so aggressive and force him to fight? He even cursed in Yuer. This obviously angered Lin Ling. Let me tell you first. You will lose very, very miserably. I hate your mouth. I want to break all your teeth. Lin Ling said as he walked. His voice was extremely cold. Anyone could hear that he was angry. You say it nicely. If you can't do it, it will be even more embarrassing, Senior Lin Ling. Zhuang Baifan was not afraid. In fact, he emphasized the words, senior brother. However, at this moment Lin Ling finally moved. Boom. The space-time fire, like the flame of his anger, exploded. The fire fist descended and destroyed everything in its path. Everyone in the area felt the heat. The fire seemed to come from the chaos of the universe. A second-grade awakened godly body. Many people cried out in surprise. This proved that Lin Ling's strength was indeed not weak. I have one too. However, Zhuang Baifan was not weak either. The 9 directions universe mirror appeared above his head and illuminated the sky. On the ground, a huge illusion of the 8 trigrams appeared. It was sacred and majestic. 1,000 opportunities Big Dipper physique. A second-grade awakened godly body. With this talent, Zhuang Baifan could distinguish the ordinary geniuses. Boom. Lin Ling's fist seemed to be blocked by something. It could not go any further. Senior Lin Ling, do you know how powerful I am? Seeing this, Zhuang Baifan sneered. Hearing this, Lin Ling did not waste any time. He raised his fist and attacked again like a god of war. However, the 8 trigrams in the sky flowed and formed a complicated pattern. It blocked Lin Ling's attack again. The 1,000 trickeries North Dipper body forms the 8 trigrams mirror array. Its defense is extremely strong. Last time, during the Battle of Dragons and Tigers, Zhuang Baifan used this talent to defeat all his opponents. Then Zhuang Baifan is undefeatable? The crowd discussed animatedly. Zhuang Baifan was ranked around 50 out of the second generation. His strength was not to be underestimated. It's impossible to be undefeatable. I think the only way to defeat Zhuang Baifan is by remaining unchanged. Someone said. This person was one of the second-generation geniuses. He was quite famous. However, right now his face was serious, because even he could not find a way to defeat it. Boom boom boom. Just then Lin Ling's aggressive attack arrived again and caused a commotion. Everyone saw that Lin Ling was still attacking crazily as if he would not give up until he reached the Yellow River. However, the result was that it was useless. The 8 trigrams light protection was 10 times more powerful than the 8 trigrams light protection. In the chaotic world, every talent had its own heaven-defying power. Some were good at offense, some were good at defense, some were good at speed, and some were good at the 5 elements. Zhuang Baifan was obviously good at defense. His defense was much stronger than other geniuses of the same level. Even Lin Ling's godly demon body was not as good as Zhuang Baifan's. Zhuang Baifan's ranking was lower than Lin Ling's. If Lin Ling could not defeat him, then Lin Ling would lose. What a mysterious awakened godly body. Although Lin Ling was furious, he did not lose his cool. He knew that this guy named Zhuang Baifan was not to be underestimated. But so what? Lin Ling wanted to see how long this powerful defense could last. Previously, he had only activated the evil flame change. Now, the power of his 2 dantians began to merge. Boom boom boom. Chapter 2543. Goodbye, Sishuanmei. Zhuang Baifan's face was calm and his heart was excited. If Lin Ling couldn't beat him, then that meant he was equal to Lin Ling. What second-generation rookie of the 3 great academies? If he hadn't risen late, then Lin Ling wouldn't have had the chance to show off his might. Bang. But at this moment, the 8 trigrams mirror began to shake, causing his face to change dramatically. What? Look at the 8 trigrams light, it's starting to shake. And it's even dimmer than before. Could Lin Ling's method be to break it with brute force? Everyone stared ahead and cried out in alarm. Lin Ling's fists were like 2 dragons rising out of the sea, directly hitting the 8 trigrams mirror and causing it to explode. It was as if he wanted to forcefully break the 8 trigrams light. Chi-chi. That simple and violent aura caused many second-generation juniors to suck in a breath of cold air. This was also possible? They thought that Lin Ling would use complicated martial arts to break the 8 trigrams light. Rumble rumble rumble. As Lin Ling's strength continued to fuse, his fists became even more powerful. Finally, under countless horrified gazes, Lin Ling's fist broke the 8 trigrams light, like a violent god of war. With Lin Ling's current cultivation realm, that was the fusion of the 8th and 7th stage of the World King realm, so he didn't need any tricks, he only needed to break it with brute force. And just as the 8 trigrams light dissipated, a fist came from the front, causing Zhuang Baifan's face to change. He immediately recognized the steel beads in his hand. Heavenly pattern Dao beads. Bang! Voila! As soon as the 2 steel beads appeared, they became larger and a terrifying power of chaos filled the air. This was actually a first-grade immortal treasure that increased the power of chaos by half a stage. To have an immortal treasure on him, one could see that his origin was extraordinary. Not long ago, Lin Ling had defeated Tang Che in the 9 Dragons realm. The latter was also a well-known figure among the second-generation juniors, and the latter had relied on an immortal treasure to dominate the second generation. From this, one could see the importance of an immortal treasure. Staring at the powerful treasure, many people's expressions became serious. They never thought that Zhuang Baifan would have such methods. No wonder he was so confident. Based on their understanding of Lin Ling, it seemed impossible for Lin Ling to defeat the immortal treasure. However, that recognition came from the battle on the drill ground. The current Lin Ling was no longer the same as before. Rumble. Lin Ling's fist still punched out. Flames erupted as if it was the fist of ancestor fire. Crackle. Under that punch, the 2 steel balls also exploded due to the stress and were violently destroyed. The fists didn't stop there. They landed heavily on Zhuang Baifan's body, causing him to spit out blood and fly hundreds of meters away. I lost. Seeing this, many people's expressions became even more solemn. They never would have thought that Lin Ling would use such a method to defeat Zhuang Baifan. There was no technique, just a crude fist. At this moment, Lin Ling also appeared. Ignoring Zhuang Baifan, who was sent flying, he walked towards Hou Xiaoyan. Looking at Lin Ling, who was like the god of death, Hou Xiaoyan felt uneasy. Not long ago, Hou Xiaoyan's man was defeated by Lin Ling. Then she climbed up to Zhuang Baifan. She thought that she could wash away the humiliation, but who knew that Zhuang Baifan would also be defeated? After a moment, Lin Ling stopped and looked down at Hou Xiaoyan. A cold, murderous intent filled the air. It was very terrifying. This is the Resplendent Academy. You can't kill me. Kill? Seeing this, Hou Xiaoyan immediately panicked. Lin Ling, don't be rash. Yu also hurriedly shouted from afar. She knew that Lin Ling was very angry at this moment. However, if Lin Ling killed Hou Xiaoyan, the consequences would be very serious. I won't destroy my future for a bitch. Kill? Although Lin Ling was angry, he didn't lose his calm. He slapped out fiercely. Slap. That slap caused Hou Xiaoyan's teeth to fly out. Her jaw was dislocated and she became ugly in an instant. And Yuer didn't offend you, but you cursed her to die. Your mouth stinks. Shut up. Lin Ling said disdainfully. Then he turned around and left. He didn't kill Hou Xiaoyan because he didn't want to dirty his hands. Almost at the same time, Zhuang Baifan walked back with his heavily injured body. You said that if someone bullied your woman, you would have already done it. Now, I've hit her in front of everyone. What are you going to do? Shut up. Seeing this, Lin Ling stared at Zhuang Baifan and said indifferently. Hearing this, Zhuang Baifan's eyes narrowed. He had said that Yuer was dead, but Lin Ling didn't dare to do anything. He wasn't a man, he was a coward. Now Lin Ling had hit his woman. What would he do? Unfortunately, he didn't dare to do anything. Coward. Seeing that Zhuang Baifan didn't say a word, Lin Ling shouted angrily. His voice was like thunder, causing Zhuang Baifan's body to tremble. He almost wanted to fight back, but in the end he lowered his head. Lin Ling's strength had exceeded his expectations. It felt like he was a half-step true Immortal realm expert. Therefore he knew that he was no match for Lin Ling. Ironically, he thought that Lin Ling was a second-generation rookie and that he was a second-generation rookie. Their strength should be about the same. Lin Ling stepped forward and walked towards Zhuang Baifan. Zhuang Baifan's eyes were filled with anxiety. I said that I would break all your teeth. Slap. Just as Zhuang Baifan was about to say something, Lin Ling's slap had already landed on his face. Slap. A miserable sound rang out, followed by the sound of teeth breaking. Zhuang Baifan's face instantly swelled up, and there was a clear palm print on it. He glared at Lin Ling, his eyes full of resentment. Lin Ling had actually slapped his face in front of so many people, and even broke his teeth. I said that it's better to keep a low profile. Maybe you think that you're stronger than others, but before you have 70% confidence, you should treat it seriously. Otherwise you'll just be asking for humiliation. Now you should feel lucky. This is Resplendent Academy. If it was outside, I would have already killed you with your cheap mouth. Looking at Zhuang Baifan indifferently, Lin Ling turned around and left. He muttered to himself, Zhuang Baifan? No wonder your name gave me such a strange feeling. So you're a pretentious prick. You want to show off in front of me? You're still lacking. The last sentence was extremely domineering. Everyone stared at the blue and white robe, and their faces became more and more serious. In Resplendent Academy there was no lack of geniuses. Every now and then, a large number of monstrous geniuses would be born. They would break the records of their predecessors and create miracles. Zhuang Baifan was obviously one of them. However, when such a miraculous genius met a genius like Lin Ling, he was obviously weaker. Lin Ling was also a genius who created miracles, but his pace was very steady, and he was not easily surpassed by the latecomers. It could only be said that Zhuang Baifan was too confident. Perhaps he would be able to catch up to Lin Ling after a period of time, but now he was clearly not strong enough. Zhuang Baifan touched his cheek and lowered his head. At this moment he no longer had the arrogance from before. His strength was inferior, and he could only swallow his broken teeth into his stomach. Senior brother Lin Ling is indeed powerful. In the square many people exclaimed in low voices, and many of the second generation were no exception. However, at this moment several figures walked over. They stood out like cranes among chickens, and the moment they appeared they attracted countless gazes. However, these people's eyes were all looking at Lin Ling, and there was a meaningful light in their eyes. These people were the top geniuses of the second generation in Resplendent Academy. They were the 10 strongest people of the second generation. One of the girls was also among them, but when she looked at Lin Ling, there was a trace of resentment. Chapter 2544. Are you afraid of me? After these geniuses appeared, the surroundings became deathly silent. However, Lin Ling also saw Si Xuanmei, and the coldness in his eyes became even more intense. Si Xuanmei was Yuer's senior sister. However, when she encountered danger, Si Xuanmei pushed Inyuer out and used Inyuer as bait to escape. Such a shameless person made Lin Ling angry every time he saw her. He didn't speak and walked towards Si Xuanmei step by step. The surrounding air was filled with an oppressive chill, and his killing intent was getting thicker and thicker. What is Lin Ling doing? Don't you know the hatred between him and Si Xuanmei? If it weren't for the Grand Secretary and other experts, Lin Ling would have killed Si Xuanmei in the previous battle. Yes, Lin Ling didn't give face to anyone at that time. Now that he sees Si Xuanmei again, how can Lin Ling suppress his anger? Many of the second generations whispered, surprised by Lin Ling's courage. Lin Ling, what are you trying to do? Seeing Lin Ling walking towards her, Si Xuanmei couldn't help but snort coldly. She still remembered the humiliation of being defeated in the past. She hated Lin Ling to death and wanted to kill Lin Ling with her own hands. However, that was just a thought. At least she didn't have the strength to do so now. However, Lin Ling didn't pay attention to her and continued walking forward. The surroundings became even more silent, and countless eyes were looking at Lin Ling. The atmosphere was very oppressive. This is Resplendent Academy, what are you trying to do? Si Xuanmei snarled again. Lin Ling was walking towards her, and she didn't know what Lin Ling wanted to do. Could it be that he wanted to kill her? She was very clear that if it weren't for the fact that there were too many important figures, Lin Ling would have killed her. Now it was no exception. Senior sister Xuanmei is afraid. Seeing Si Xuanmei's appearance, many people secretly exclaimed. Si Xuanmei used to be the #1 rookie of the second generation. If there were no accidents, she would have become the strongest second generation. Unfortunately, she met Lin Ling. Now she was afraid of Lin Ling. This showed that Lin Ling had left an indelible seed in Si Xuanmei's heart. He was a mountain that she must surpass. My master is one of the 10 great sword immortals of the Azure province, and this is the Resplendent Academy. Do you dare to act recklessly here? Si Xuanmei felt more and more stressed. So what? Lin Ling finally opened his mouth. His words were so shocking that it caused the hearts of many people in the surroundings to tremble. Naturally, those words gave Si Xuanmei even more pressure. She roared, "If you dare to kill me, my master will definitely not let you off. Although you have some strength, you are not my master's opponent. Moreover, this is the Resplendent Academy. Killing is not allowed here. You dare to violate the rules?" She hated and feared Lin Ling at the same time. She hated the fact that Lin Ling had stolen all of her limelight and was humiliating her now. She was afraid that Lin Ling was a person who dared to take responsibility for his actions and did whatever he wanted. Therefore, she had no choice but to threaten him with words. So what? However, Lin Ling still said the same sentence. It was cold as if he was emotionless. Moreover, as he walked, the terrifying aura around him became denser. His killing intent surged as if it was going to freeze the world. At this moment, not only Si Xuanmei, but even the faces of the second-generation disciples turned pale. Lin Ling, the Resplendent Academy is one of the 3 great academies. It is not your home. I am sure that when you make your move, someone will interrupt you. You must not kill your fellow disciples. Si Xuanmei took a step back and spoke rapidly. It was as if she was afraid that Lin Ling would kill her if she was too slow. Many people even trembled violently when they saw this fairy-like genius. However, at this moment, Lin Ling stopped in his tracks and said indifferently, "Are you afraid of me?" It was a calm sentence, but it was like a thunderclap that left Si Xuanmei speechless. In the past, she was a goddess that countless geniuses looked up to. She was the object of countless men's yearning. However, she was now afraid of a rising star. Moreover, even if she wanted to refute Lin Ling, her body had already betrayed her. No one would believe her. You said that the Resplendent Academy does not allow murder and killing fellow disciples? Lin Ling asked again. Yes. Si Xuanmei forced herself to focus and replied. So what if you kill fellow disciples? Lin Ling asked again. Killing fellow disciples is an ugly and despicable act. It is a disgrace to the academy. Si Xuanmei thought that Lin Ling was afraid of the academy's rules, so she made the rules sound even more serious. Then let me ask you, how did Inyuer go missing? However, Lin Ling's next sentence stunned Si Xuanmei. Inyuer was framed by her. Now that her life and death were unknown, she was also considered killing fellow disciples. And when she said that killing fellow disciples was an ugly and despicable act, she was also talking about herself. At this moment she wanted to say something but stopped. Her face was green and red and she was extremely ashamed. Originally, Inyuer's disappearance would not be known as long as she did not say anything. Unfortunately, Lin Ling had forced her to say it last time. This made it clear to everyone. At this moment, many people were looking at Xuanmei with strange gazes. Ugly and despicable act, this was referring to Xuanmei, right? She seemed to be scolding herself. You. At this moment, Xuanmei was too ashamed to face anyone. However, at this moment Lin Ling said again, you should also want to kill me. Yes. 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 Xuanmei did not hide her thoughts. Her eyes were red as she replied. Lin Ling made her lose face and even her master lost face. How could she not want to kill Lin Ling? It's normal. I made you lose your reputation, making you more like a witch. You definitely want to kill me. Since you want to kill me, why should I be so afraid? Lin Ling said again. Hearing this, many people nodded. Xuanmei wanted Lin Ling dead, and Lin Ling naturally wanted her dead. Since they were sworn enemies, why would Lin Ling be afraid of Xuanmei's master? Perhaps, Lin Ling did not even fear the rules of Resplendent Academy. You might not be able to kill her. Calm. However, at this moment, one of the 10 second-generation geniuses behind Xuanmei spoke indifferently. This person was not tall, but he was very muscular. He had a square face, but it gave people a feeling that his square face was like steel, and there was an unapproachable expression. Genji. Everyone stared at the short and muscular youth and could not help but exclaim. Because this was the strongest genius of the second generation. No one would have thought that the number one genius of the second generation, Genji, would personally speak to Lin Ling. In fact, the reason why the 10 second-generation geniuses were silent was because they wanted to see how strong the rising star Lin Ling was. However, the result did not disappoint them. This Lin Ling was like a dragon soaring into the sky. After entering the second generation, he was extremely fearless. Even if they were here, Lin Ling would directly ignore them. This kind of disregard made them very unhappy. I know you will quibble, but don't forget, Xuanmei has a 5th grade awakened godly body. It's just that her cultivation time is too short. That's why she lost to you. If given more time, you will definitely lose. This also means that if you dare to challenge Xuanmei again, you will definitely die. Chapter 2545. A 5th grade talent that sealed everything. Many people pondered for a moment before nodding. A 5th grade awakened godly body, it could be said that within the second generation, there were no more than 5 people with such a talent. Hence, Xuanmei was destined to enter the first generation. If given enough time, Xuanmei could indeed become very strong. It's better to know one's limits, or else you won't even know what happened when you die. Genji said again. Thanks for the reminder. I know that many people are unhappy with me, Lin Ling. But if you want to kill me, then come. Why bother with all this nonsense? Lin Ling smiled faintly. Within the second generation, geniuses were as common as clouds. Some even came from Grand Courtyard Prefecture. Hence, many wanted him dead. Perhaps even the strongest second-generation geniuses had the same thought. Unfortunately, this had nothing to do with Lin Ling. If they wanted Lin Ling dead, if they wanted Lin Ling to make a fool of himself, then come. You said before that Xuanmei's talent is very strong, but her training time is too short. That's why I was able to defeat her? Lin Ling spoke. Isn't that the case? Genji nodded. From his point of view, Xuanmei was considered a genius, while Lin Ling was still lacking. Then let me ask you, is it her who has been in Resplendent Academy longer, or is it me? Let me ask you again, what is her cultivation level and what is mine? Lin Ling smiled faintly. His words caused Genji's pupils to dilate. It was undeniable that Xuanmei's talent was very strong. If her cultivation level increased by a bit, even Genji would have to be wary. However, Lin Ling's cultivation level was even lower, yet he was able to defeat Xuanmei. Then why not give Lin Ling some time? The answer was simple. No matter how strong Xuanmei became, she still wasn't Lin Ling's opponent. Lin Ling was a genius who came later. He started from the last generation of candidates and finally became a second-generation genius. At that time, Xuanmei was already a second-generation genius. This means that Lin Ling entered Resplendent Academy later than Xuanmei. Some of the geniuses said solemnly, causing Genji to frown. He had missed this point. Don't you feel that what you said before was like slapping your own face? Seeing this, Lin Ling gave tit for tat, and his words were mixed with sarcasm. Hearing this, Genji's face darkened. It was obvious that he had lost face. I can't deny that you have a sharp tongue. However, the price you have to pay to humiliate the number one genius of the second generation is very heavy. I admit that you are a genius. Let me ask you for some advice. Genji took a step forward, a terrifying aura emanating from him. Words could make him lose face, but he could counterattack with strength and make Lin Ling return in a sorry state. It can't be. Senior brother Genji made a move? Lin Ling is too arrogant. He didn't even give senior brother Genji any face. How could senior brother Genji just swallow it? Could it be that Genji Shixiang killed Lin Ling? No one thought that Genji would suddenly make a move. This caused many of the second generation to be filled with anticipation. Genji was the #1 genius of the second generation, and Lin Ling was the most dazzling genius of the second generation. The two were about to clash. However, no one thought highly of Lin Ling. After all, the #1 genius of the second generation was famous in the 3 academies. He was much stronger than Lin Ling. You can't win, so you use force? However, everyone thought that Lin Ling would be afraid. Who knew that Lin Ling only laughed as though he wasn't surprised by this outcome. Your mouth is too smelly, I'm just teaching you to have some temper. Genji laughed coldly. If he didn't suppress Lin Ling, this Lin Ling wouldn't know what a senior brother was. Don't worry, I won't kill you. After all, you aren't enough for me to break Resplendent Academy's rules. However, I will humiliate you. Along with his voice, a turbulent black fog shot out from his body. Like circles of clouds, it sealed off the entire area. These clouds had a domineering aura, suppressing the second generations in the surroundings to the point that they couldn't even move a single step. The #1 genius of the second generation, his strength was indeed terrifying. Genji is facing a junior brother and he actually used his innate talent. See Xuanmei, don't worry. This junior brother will be humiliated today. The other second generation juniors said. They had fought with Genji for many years and knew how difficult and terrifying the latter was. Peak of the World King Realm? A 5th grade awakened godly body. At the same time, Lin Ling let out a dignified voice. A 5th grade awakened godly body, the same as Si Xuanmei. However, Si Xuanmei's innate talent wasn't good enough while Genji's was. You have a good eye. From the rolling black clouds, a faint laughter floated out and enveloped Lin Ling. In that instant, the world seemed to disappear. At the same time, a huge black coffin appeared in the sky. Rolling black gas poured out from the coffin. 5th grade awakened godly body, evil light mystic body. This wasn't a ghost attribute talent but a dark attribute talent. It could absorb all energy and control a martial artist's life and death. Without a 5th grade awakened godly body, he can't resist. Among the second generation juniors, one of them shook his head and said, talent was the foundation for a genius to fight above their level. If one's talent was higher, then they would win without a doubt. Lin Ling's cultivation wasn't as high as Genji's and his talent wasn't as good. How could he resist? Now that he's in the black world, he's isolated from the martial god world and the other worlds. He's trapped in a prison. If he doesn't slap himself 3 times, Genji won't let him out. He might even be scared to tears. The others also sneered one after another. Hearing this, the surrounding people stared at the black fog, guessing in their hearts. Could the black fog trap any strong martial artist? This was too heaven-defying. Even a world has been trapped before. As if sensing everyone's shock, another second-generation junior explained. Using the black fog to trap a world, this ability was too heaven-defying. At this moment, Yu and the rest were extremely worried. Especially Yu. She had heard of Genji before. It was said that once his talent was used, any martial artist trapped in the black fog would have their strength sucked away. They could only be defeated in the end. Hence, she didn't know how Lin Ling would deal with this talent. Among them, only Tang Yue wasn't worried about Lin Ling. Because she knew Lin Ling's strength too well. A half-step true immortal realm martial artist lost to Lin Ling. Genji wasn't even a half-step true immortal yet. What a mysterious talent. At this moment, in the rolling black fog, Lin Ling found himself in the darkness as if he was in another world. Fire. Lin Ling activated the time fire. However, the fire couldn't break through the darkness. Obviously, the time fire's level was too low and couldn't suppress Genji's talent. This reminded Lin Ling of a memory. In the past, Li Xiaoyao had also come into contact with such a mystical ability. That powerhouse was also of the dark attribute, but his darkness could cover the 1,000 realms whirling. He had once covered countless realms in the Western realm in darkness, and once enveloped by the darkness, even the table in front of him would disappear. This talent was indeed terrifying. Interesting. Lin Ling's lips curled into a smile. The martial god world was filled with geniuses. There were bound to be monstrous geniuses that surprised Lin Ling. In the outside world, you can easily open the martial god path and enter. However, in my world, any attack is useless. If you don't believe me, you can try. Chapter 2546. Follow up the victory. Lin Ling had already tried this before. Don't think that you will be fine if you don't move because your Jiayuan will be continuously absorbed. After 3 incense sticks of time, you will be crying and begging for mercy. That voice laughed coldly before disappearing. Genji did not even need to do anything and Lin Ling would be exhausted. Once he released Lin Ling, one finger would be enough to defeat Lin Ling. My Jiayuan is indeed continuously disappearing. Lin Ling was another method to discover the darkness. His talent was truly heaven-defying. Think about it, if you could not find an opponent and could not escape, then your Jiayuan would continuously disappear. No matter how strong a martial artist was, they would not be able to do anything. After that, Lin Ling took out God crystals and continuously refined them to recover his Jiayuan. However, he was shocked to find that the recovery speed of his Jiayuan could not compare to the absorption speed. Truly a talent that cannot be underestimated. Lin Ling could not help but sigh. With this talent, Genji did not have many opponents in the half-step True God realm. However, Genji had clearly underestimated Lin Ling. Because Lin Ling had 2 Danshians, his Jiayuan was endless. If he wanted to absorb, then let him absorb. It was just a waste of time. Lin Ling could afford to play. At this moment outside, the sounds of shock were still like waves. The crowd looked at the huge coffin and finally knew how terrifying Genji was. Senior brother Genji is still the strongest. Thank you for standing up for junior sister Xuanmei. Si Xuanmei bowed to Genji. She thought that Lin Ling must be very embarrassed right now. No worries, the number 1 second-generation rookie, although he has some ability, but to me it's just SOSO. Genji waved his hand indifferently, enjoying the admiring gazes of the crowd. Genji, what are you doing? Come. At this moment, several figures walked over from afar. They were the seniors from Resplendent Academy. One of them was Ancestor Longpa. Hehe, just giving some pointers to junior brother. Haha. Genji knew the matter of teaching Lin Ling a lesson had to be temporarily put aside. However, this was enough to make Lin Ling restrain himself. This Lin Ling doesn't have much ability, but he knows quite a lot of people. Every time he has to rely on some seniors to help him. I see that he became a new talent of the 2nd generation. Looks like it was done in secret by a senior. The other geniuses of the 2nd generation said sarcastically. Haha, that's all he's got. He can only rely on you, senior. But since you're here, I'll let him go. Hearing that, Genji laughed heartily, waving his right hand. The black fog surged back into the coffin. Since Ancestor Dragon Granny and the others are here, Genji doesn't dare to be too arrogant. Therefore he didn't teach Lin Ling a lesson. Haha. Seeing Genji's carefree and domineering actions, many of the 2nd generation geniuses laughed out loud. One of them asked, how's Lin Ling now? His realm essence has been sucked dry. Right now he probably doesn't even have the strength to stand up. It is very likely that he is kneeling. Genji immediately said. He was very confident. Only an 8th layer realm king. 3 incense sticks of time was enough to suck his realm essence dry. Perhaps Lin Ling might be unconscious right now. That would be interesting to watch. Even Si Xuanmei was looking forward to it. These guys. After Ancestor Dragon Granny arrived, her expression was extremely ugly. These strongest 2nd generation geniuses were clearly bullying Lin Ling, wanting to make Lin Ling lose face. But Genji and the others didn't violate the rules of the academy and didn't kill anyone. Therefore she couldn't do anything. At this time, the black fog finally dispersed, revealing a slender figure. It was Lin Ling. Brother Ling. Yu was the first to shout, her voice filled with worry. No need for Brother Ling to be in front, Brother Ling to be behind. He's very weak now. Your voice can make him faint. A genius lightly said, his face full of ridicule. I'll test it out a little. And at this time Genji stepped forwards. Beneath Ancestor Dragon Granny's surprise, he actually attacked Lin Ling. Don't worry, I won't harm him. I will suppress my cultivation to the 5th layer of the World King realm and see if he can block it. Genji's fists billowed, his realm essence roaring. However, Lin Ling's realm essence had been sucked dry. Not to mention a 5th layer World King, even a 1st layer World King would be enough to make Lin Ling retreat in distress. Ancestor Dragon Granny and the others wanted to stop him, but it was clearly too late. Si Xuanmei was excited. She looked forward to Lin Ling being smashed to the ground by this fist and losing all face. Of course, many people also had this thought. Only falling flowers, flowing water and sword were so angry that they clenched their teeth. This was going too far. And the fist was getting closer and closer to Lin Ling. But Lin Ling still didn't move, as if he hadn't noticed at all. He's so weak he can't react. Someone laughed sarcastically, thinking that Lin Ling was already in a semi-conscious state. However, just as his words fell, a powerful aura erupted from Lin Ling's body, as if a sleeping lion had awoken. How was this still the weak Lin Ling? This was simply the vigor of a dragon and the ferocity of a tiger. You want to exchange fists with me? At this moment, Lin Ling's narrowed eyes shone with a cold light. Like a sword being unsheathed, his aura soared to the heavens. His fist also punched out. Bang! The fists collided. Terrifying realm essence erupted, causing some third-generation juniors to lose their footing. But their faces were filled with fear. Lin Ling, shouldn't his realm essence have been sucked dry? How could he be so fierce now? Of course, the most surprised person was Genji. He maintained his punching posture, but the youth in front of his fist was calm and unmoving, making it difficult for him to take another step forward. At this moment he was a bit confused. His fifth-grade awakened godhead should have sucked Lin Ling's realm essence dry. Where did Lin Ling's strength come from? This is the number 1 second generation? Although he has some skills, but to me that's all there is to it. Lin Ling maintained his punching posture. Suddenly the power of his second dantian erupted. He had 2 dantians. Previously one was sucked dry, but there was still another one. Genji did not think of this point, so his punch did not explode with his full strength. This caused him to be sent flying by Lin Ling's punch. Bang bang bang. With every step Genji took back, the ground beneath his feet would explode, causing cracks to appear. What a terrifying punch. Everyone was shocked by the power of Lin Ling's punch. Genji finally managed to stop his momentum. He raised his head and looked at Lin Ling furiously. However, Lin Ling moved, chasing after the victory. His fist punched out once again. This time it was even more ferocious than before, like a violent storm. Bang! Genji's body had just stabilized, his breathing was unstable. Facing Lin Ling's punch, he could only forcefully use his realm essence to resist. But obviously, the forceful use of his realm essence was not enough. Boom! Lin Ling's second punch was a direct hit to the heart of the matter. His fist caused the void to crackle. Genji let out a pitiful cry. His body was sent flying once again. This time he was smashed out and not sent flying. Rumble. He directly smashed through a building far away, causing dust to fly everywhere. Countless people's mouths were wide open. The number 1 second generation Genji was actually sent flying by Lin Ling. God. Chapter 2547. The 3 Academies Pride Tournament. One must know that no one thought highly of Lin Ling from the start, because no matter how monstrous Lin Ling was, he would never be able to challenge the number 1 of the second generation. However, reality proved that Lin Ling was Resplendent Academy's number 1 monstrous genius. There was nothing he couldn't do. How could this be? Si Xuanmei's face was extremely pale. The more she knew Lin Ling, the more she realized that Lin Ling's strength was unfathomable. Furthermore, Lin Ling was only a 2nd-grade talent. How could he block a 5th-grade talent? This guy was too monstrous. In truth, even Ancestor Longpo was in disbelief. Could it be that a 5th-grade awakened godly body was ineffective against Lin Ling? She was overthinking. Lin Ling definitely couldn't block a 5th-grade awakened godly body, but Lin Ling's strength wasn't just limited to his cultivation realm. At that moment, the geniuses were shocked beyond words, exclaiming at the reality in front of them. As for the strongest 2nd generation, their faces changed from shock to shock and finally to solemnity. Could it be that Lin Ling already had the qualifications to compete for the title of the strongest 2nd generation? Only Lin Ling's face was calm. Because he could already defeat a half-step true god, a mere Genji was nothing in his eyes. What made him fearful was only Genji's talent. Pong, 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 pong. Almost at the same time, a series of explosions sounded. Genji walked back with a gloomy face. If it wasn't for Ancestor Longpa, I would have defeated you today. I'll return the same words to you. However, Lin Ling wasn't afraid at all, he even wanted to try. Genji didn't expect Lin Ling to embarrass him. Not only was he not lucky, he even looked like he wanted to fight again. This was a huge humiliation to him. I underestimated you just now. I didn't even use my full strength. Otherwise, how could I have been defeated by you? Genji's voice was very low. The number 1 of the 2nd generation actually lost. If the other 2 academies' opponents knew, they would laugh at him. Not repelled but sent flying. Lin Ling smiled and corrected his words. Also, are you the only one who hasn't used your full strength? You. Genji shouted again, you. He was so angry that he almost lost his mind. Lin Ling is so arrogant, he's not afraid of Genji at all. That's right, I thought he would lower his voice in front of Genji, who knew he wasn't afraid at all. Could it be that he's still hiding his strength? Seeing Lin Ling and Genji going head to head, many of the geniuses looked at Lin Ling in a new light. Today's Lin Ling was clearly a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. As for Xianxia, her face was gloomy. Lin Ling was getting further and further away from her. If she did not increase her strength, she would definitely be killed by Lin Ling. She suddenly felt an enormous pressure in her heart. Haha, Lin Ling, not bad at all. At this time, Ancestor Long Granny's laughter could be heard. Lin Ling had gone missing previously. Who would have thought that after his return, his strength would increase so much that he would be able to fight against the number 1 second generation. This guy surpassed those powerful geniuses as if it was as simple as drinking water. I knew that you guys would fight sooner or later, but the Pride Tournament of the 3 Academies is coming. The fight for the number 1 second generation can start during the Pride Tournament. Ancestor Long Granny said. That's right, I almost forgot about that. The Pride Tournament of the 3 Academies, that's the battle of pride between the 3 Academies. Speaking of it, I'm actually excited. I'm afraid that Lin Ling and Genji's battle will be left for that time. Hearing Ancestor Long Granny's words, many of the geniuses started to discuss, and many of them were in high spirits. The Pride Tournament of the 3 Academies, that was a battle between the second generation of the 3 Academies. Genji was the number 1 second generation of the Resplendent Academy, but he was obviously not the number 1 second generation of the 3 Academies. Therefore, even Genji was looking forward to such a competition. Lin Ling, see you in the Pride Tournament, let's see who's more arrogant. Genji looked at Lin Ling and said. He no longer dared to treat Lin Ling as an ant. I'm sorry, but you don't have the qualifications to be my opponent. I'm curious about the number 1 second generation of the other academies. Unfortunately, Lin Ling replied indifferently. Through the previous battle, he had a rough understanding of the second generation of the Resplendent Academy. Therefore, his goal was to be the number 1 second generation of the other academies. Since he would become the number 1 first generation sooner or later, he could use the Pride Tournament to see his own flaws and see how powerful the geniuses of the 3 academies were. This was the 3rd time Genji had shouted you, today. He never thought that Lin Ling would be so arrogant that he would not treat him as an opponent. Previously, he had only underestimated his opponent. If he were to use his full strength, Lin Ling would not be his opponent. Unfortunately, a win was a win and a loss was a loss. No matter what excuses he came up with, he could not erase the humiliation from before. Everyone disperse. Ancestor Long Po looked deeply at Genji and said lightly. She then smiled at Lin Ling and said, Lin Ling, follow me. Lin Ling nodded and looked coldly at Xianxia before leaving with Yu and the rest. That look was a threat, telling Xianxia that her good days were numbered. That look made Xianxia's heart tremble. She hated Lin Ling even more. Lin Ling was forcing her into a dead end, not giving her a way out. She and Lin Ling only had a small conflict. Who knew that Lin Ling would bully her like this? At this moment, she treated Lin Ling as a life and death enemy. She had to kill Lin Ling no matter what. When she was thinking about this, she didn't realize that when she harmed Yu, she had also given Yu a way to live. As for Genji, he stood there coldly. He still did not understand how Lin Ling had sent him flying. Why was his talent ineffective against Lin Ling? At this moment, Lin Ling was walking with Ancestor Longpa. Beside him was Senior Dandelion. The two of them looked at Lin Ling in shock. Your strength has increased again? Yes. Ancestor Longpa finally could not help but ask. A true genius was not as simple as increasing one's realm. Increasing one's strength was the most important. Moreover, I can sense the aura of Sword Heart from you. Senior Dandelion was a powerful swordsman, so she said thoughtfully. Lin Ling smiled bitterly and shook his head. In front of these seniors he could not hide anything. He immediately said, Yes, I have indeed comprehended Sword Heart. Yes. You. Yes. Dandelion and Ancestor Longpa stopped in their tracks at the same time and looked at Lin Ling in horror. One must know that the Academy had been paying attention to Lin Ling because Lin Ling's cultivation speed was too fast. However, some opponents believed that Lin Ling was just a flash in the pan. He was strong in the beginning but not strong enough in the end. But who knew that Lin Ling's momentum did not decrease at all? His realm increased quickly and even his strength was the same. What? You have comprehended Sword Heart? Beside him, Falling Flowers Flowing Water also exclaimed. He looked at Lin Ling from head to toe as if he was looking at a monster. His master was one of the top 10 sword immortals in Jianghu, so he knew what Sword Heart represented. His master had once said that only with Sword Heart could one be considered a true ultimate sword Dao. And his master had comprehended Sword Heart 8,000 years later. Chapter 2548. Flame World Fragment. Haha, I was just lucky. Haha. Seeing falling flowers, flowing water sword's terrified expression, Lin Ling smiled and said casually, Lin Ling, I won't call you Lord in the future, okay? Can I call you Master? I'll kneel to you, please enlighten me on my sword heart. Haha. Falling flowers, flowing water sword smiled bitterly and almost knelt to Lin Ling. With the sword heart, his battle strength had doubled. Because the sword heart was also primal chaos energy, it had probably reached the first level. Your talent is too weak. I don't want to recruit such a mediocre disciple. Haha. Hearing this, Lin Ling looked at falling flowers, flowing water sword seriously and said indifferently, Ah, Lord, don't joke around. Falling flowers, flowing water sword was speechless. Haha. Ancestor Dragon Granny and the others laughed and then led the group forward. Ancestor Dragon Granny suddenly said seriously, the Pride Tournament is not only a tournament for personal glory, but also a tournament for the school. Lin Ling, you will represent the second generation and win glory for the Resplendent Academy. Don't lose face for the Resplendent Academy. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded. However, don't look down on the second generation. The first generation of the second generation of the Heavenly Saint Academy and Songling Academy are all extremely strong. They can fight against a half-step true god. Moreover, their talent is not weak. Your talent is currently your weakness, and so is your cultivation realm. The Pride Tournament will be held in about a year. Use this 1 year to stabilize your realm. Ancestor Dragon Granny and Senior Dandelion continued. A year was very short, and it was difficult to increase one's cultivation. However, if one stabilized their realm, their strength would increase by about 10%. In order to increase the strength of the second generation, the Academy has decided to let all the second generation enter the myriad worlds. Ancestor Dragon Granny looked at Lin Ling and said. Lin Ling's eyes flashed. Enter the myriad worlds to comprehend? What was that? In the infinite worlds, the Resplendent Academy has its own independent void. It has a place to raise the strength of the sword Tao, 5 elements, Buddha, wind, and so on. You only need to choose one of them. Ancestor Dragon Granny continued, it's very difficult to open these independent voids. It costs a lot, so it's an extremely rare opportunity. You have to grasp it well. That's great. It's actually an independent void. That chess boy immediately said in ecstasy. That kind of place was something that could only be encountered by chance. This was also the reason why so many geniuses wanted to join the 3 great academies. You're not the second generation yet, so you don't have a chance this time. Only Lin Ling and Yu can enter. However, Senior Dandelion glanced at Chess Boy and immediately attacked him. This made Chess Boy gloomy. He wished he was the second generation. However, he didn't have Lin Ling's monstrous talent. He could only cultivate 1 step at a time and slowly become stronger. Lin Ling and Yu looked at each other. Yu immediately said, I'll go to the 5 Elements Department. The 5 Elements Department is all-encompassing. It's the most difficult to comprehend. Are you sure? Senior Dandelion asked with a frown. One had to know that there were many types of martial arts department in the academy. For example, the fire element, earth element, and so on. However, the 5 Elements Department included these independent voids. It was even more complicated. It was possible to return empty-handed. Yu nodded with determination in her eyes. There's only one chance. If you miss it, there won't be another. I hope you can choose the best independent void. Of course, if you're sure, we won't stop you. Ancestor Dragon Granny didn't persuade anymore. She looked at Lin Ling and asked, What about you? Lin Ling was a triple cultivator of essence, chi, and spirit. There were many places he could go, but he could only choose one. What about the refinement department? Or the sword Tao department? Moreover, there were also the soul department that could increase one's soul power. Soon, Lin Ling made a decision and said, I'll go to the fire department. That's a good choice. Your current fire element talent is too low. If you go to the fire department, it's very likely that you'll be greatly improved in this field. Ancestor Dragon Granny nodded with satisfaction. She never had to worry about Lin Ling's cultivation. Lin Ling seemed to know his shortcomings and strengths better than anyone else. It felt as if Lin Ling was a powerful warrior. Then the 2 of you should prepare. We'll set off in 3 days. Ancestor Dragon Granny said. Falling flowers, flowing water, and the others gave their blessings to Lin Ling and Yu. After all, this year's cultivation was related to the upcoming Pride Tournament. Therefore, they hoped that Lin Ling could rule the world among the second generation of the 3 great academies. The crowd quickly separated. Lin Ling held Yu's hand and walked around the Resplendent Academy. He also told her about his return to the rainforest's sacred land. How are Grandpa and the others? Speaking of this, Yu Yu's mood clearly became excited. Very good. By the way, has reached the martial emperor realm. It won't be long before he can comprehend the boundary seed and come to us. Lin Ling said in a good mood. That little guy is very hardworking. I haven't seen him for a long time. I miss him. I forgot to mention this. Has also found a partner. Her name is Huang Ying. She seems to have a good personality and she likes very much. Really? Has grown up. Hee, maybe in a few years will have a child and you will be a grandmother. You're so annoying. You're going to be a grandfather too. The two of them talked as they walked. It was like their childhood dream, to hold hands and travel around the universe. All of this was obviously not easy to come by. One must know that in this chaotic universe, many people who loved each other could not be together. In the end they were separated by yin and yang. And all of this was due to Lin Ling's contribution. He also knew that all of this was brought about by strength. Only with great strength could one protect everything. At this moment, his heart was incomparably tranquil. He came from another world and did not expect that he would come to this day. Even his son was about to marry a wife. Although his life had been filled with blood and tears, it was also extremely perfect. Of course the battle was not over. Lin Ling still had to avenge Li Xiaoyao's great hatred. 3 days later, Lin Ling and Yu Yu were led by ancestor Long Pa to the independent void. This independent void was in the chaotic universe. When Lin Ling and the rest appeared there were a large number of whirlpools floating in the starry sky, revealing a mysterious aura. According to legend, the independent void was born from a mutated world. There were countless treasures in it. At this moment, a large number of figures were shuttling back and forth in the starry sky. They were all the second generation of the Resplendent Academy. They were pacing back and forth in front of the whirlpools, as if they were hesitating about which system to cultivate. And from time to time, there were people walking out of the whirlpools with regretful expressions. Obviously they had reached their limits. In the 10,000 worlds, one could not cultivate for as long as they wanted. It also depended on one's own limits. Once one reached their limits, the consequences would be unimaginable if they forced themselves to stay. Lin Ling, it's Lin Ling. He's also here. It seems like he wants to work hard for the Pride Tournament. I heard that Genji has also entered the independent void. He's going for the dark system. I'm looking forward to their confrontation. Many people also saw Lin Ling and whispered among themselves. Among the second generation of the Resplendent Academy, Lin Ling was now a celebrity. Ordinary second generation did not dare to provoke him. They only respected and worshipped him. Yu, let's go. Ignoring the gazes around him, Lin Ling smiled at Yu Yu. Yu Yu nodded and the two walked side by side. Yu Yu had chosen the independent void of the 5 elements.